How's it going, YouTube? How y'all doing today? Another Friday, which means that we forgot to change the background.
Oops, so we did. No big deal.
Oh well,
we still have the background up from Wednesday's Atrocity Album Club, which was a really good episode and people really enjoyed it.
But there we go.
We can ditch that and move on with things. So, Marty, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Been busy. Things are going good. A little bit better attitude these days, which is kind of nice.
New Year's off to a good start.
New Year's off to a better start, I guess. How about you? What's been going on?
We're launching another semester, so been spending the past 3 days helping a whole bunch of lost students figure out where they need to be. But yeah, it's going all right. The weather has been real crappy down here. Very, very wet, stormy, and cold this week. So not a good combination, but we have avoided the worst of it. A lot of people have had it really bad up and down the East Coast and the Midwest and the Southeast and everywhere else. So really can't complain too much just because we had a bunch of cold rain. Hope everyone else is doing all right and that folks out there have avoided the nasty weather moving across the U.S. For pretty much the past 7 days. And so tonight we can all huddle down here, stay nice and warm, and talk some metal.
One thing that would help keep some of you folks warm is the new line of clothing we have over at Heavy Metallurgy. We have the Sex Condor shirts. I'll be pimping these for a while. If you haven't got a shirt yet, there's plenty to go around, so no worries. Links in the description. Done by Lee over at Heavy Art Talk.
Yep.
And the new collector, Heavy Metallurgy collector Scum shirts. Obviously, the Scum is from a certain grindcore band that we all know and love. But, yep, parody shirt, whatever. Cool little call out what you are type of thing. But, yeah. And today, we've got a couple awesome guests. Starting off the new year right. We've got Mike from MetalMickey. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you.
Hey, Mike.
What's up, Rebels?
And Jurgen from 6 Beers, 9 Wives. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We're starting off the year right, I think.
Yeah.
So, Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
What has been, I'm loading up, Alan, why don't you take it for a second here? I'm loading up the thumbnail because it's bugging me.
Sure. So, yeah, guys, what is up with each of your channels? Mike, I know you've had some popular videos up lately. Anything you'd like to let folks know about?
I've got a live stream next week, which is me, Darcy, Johnny Mac, and Metal Marty Mac, and we're just talking about classic rock bands. Sort of, I decided to pick a few bands that largely haven't been mentioned on any of our channels, really. Some of them have. There's some classic rock bands that you'll have seen on my channel and Darcy's channel and stuff, but for the most part, the bands that we don't talk about. And I decided just to go with something easy that you didn't have to research. If you don't know anything about a particular band, well, there'll be a reason why you've never delved into them after all these years, and that can too be a talking point. And that was what I decided, just to have a totally easy live stream. And then the week after, there's probably the biggest VC meetup that's ever been, I would think. There's 17 of us all meeting up in Glasgow to see some underground death metal stuff. I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of the lineup of bands, and I don't even know who's playing, but Liam, the Death Doom metalhead, his band Consecration, they're going to be playing it, and that's reason enough for me. And the meet up with the rest of the guys, and I mean, you've got all the guys from over here. That's you've got Liam, Mark G, Cloudy, the Rock Scout. All the big hitters. Metal Marty Mac is flying over from Ireland and stuff. It's going to be 17 of us. I'll try and put together some sort of vlog, and hopefully that'll be something of interest for people to watch. It's always good to see final community guys getting together in person. I always think I like those videos. What do you guys think?
No, that would be really neat. You should definitely get some pictures, documentation, and such, because that'll be very cool. It's neat that folks there are close enough that kind of thing can happen. It'd be very difficult, to get that many folks from the U.S. together because we're so spread out.
it is close, but people are making definitely an effort because there's some guys from London right up to Glasgow, which is, I don't know, I would say that's 600 miles. I know it's a piece in Yorkshire for you guys over there, but over here, that's so, shout out to them guys making that up.
All right.
I've got the bathrobes here on, and just in case it gets a bit chilly.
Mike is prepared. He's ready to hunker down if needed.
Jurgen, what's been going on with you? What's going on with the channel?
I've done a couple of year-end list videos. I've done your metal tag, but I didn't have had the time to answer all the comments now. So sorry goes out to everybody. I'm a little bit busy at the moment with other stuff, but yeah, working out fine.
Right on. And I got to say, extend a thank you for Mike for encouraging us to do it and helping out a bit with it. And everybody that has taken the time to throw a video into the fray for the Metal Tag 2024. It's been cool. It's been fun. A lot of channels I've never seen before I'm now subscribed to. So it's helped put a little wider magnifying glass on what's going on in the metal VC that I didn't know about previously. So very cool.
Cheers to everybody who participated. I've been watching a lot of them at work, so apologies if I haven't commented on your video. A lot of times I have them, going in the background with other stuff, so I can't always stop and comment. But yeah, I'm glad folks have enjoyed it, and a lot of folks have gotten some mileage out of it for their channels. That's great to see.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, thanks, Mike, for putting.
It would be a shame to let it just sort of peter out to nothing, wouldn't it? And you two guys were two sterling fellas to, carry the torch sort of thing.
Right.
Glad we could help out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're here for a specific purpose this evening, and it's to talk about the year 1987. It's, looking at the list of bands that popped up when I started sniffing around, I was pretty blown away at they're all albums that are a big part of my life, part of my metal journey, part of my musical journey. Albums today that I look at and I'm just blown away by still to this day. How about you, Jurgen? What was going on with you in 1987?
In 1987, I had 1 year in the metal world. I started February 1986. So 1987, I was well involved, so to say. I was 12 years old back then, by the way. But I had a lot of friends that were older from school. A couple of my friends had brothers that were into metal, so yeah, full on. Mostly tape trading, but for the little money that I had, I bought a lot of records, and I still have plenty of them in my collection.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's some stuff here that I could never see myself parting with. No, and I might even have some of these on multiple formats too. But yeah, Mike, how about you? 1987.
I was looking there. I was trying to find a photograph of Jurgen from about this time. He sent me a photograph a couple of years ago, and I've got it tucked in with a Running Wild album, and I forget which album I've put it in with. But he's there, like, back in the 80s, hardly any hair, because he's only a child, but he's no less metal, and obviously you can see his room behind him still is a shrine to, like, the noise and steam hammer labels. But I can't find it. 1987 for me, similar to Jurgen, he was a little bit, even though he's younger than me by a year or two.
Mike.
Yeah,
it's in the Resilient album because Resilient, yeah, because I bought that for you.
Hang on, let me find it, because I can't, but why can't I find it? It would be, I would have thought I would have just kept it handy. Oh, here it is. You're quite right. Oh no, that's the fucking seed. No, look, this is gone from bad to worse. I don't know where it's at. I'll find it. But yeah. So Jurgen said he got into it in the February '86. I didn't get into it until the November '86, where the final countdown and Slippery When Wet just changed changed our lives. 1986. Previously, I was listening to psychobilly stuff, King Kurt, Meteors, Guana Bats, Restless, stuff like that. And it was on here in Europe in the final countdown. And Bon Jovi, it wasn't even You Give Love a Bad Name. That was the previous single which I missed out on. It was actually Living on a Prayer. I wasn't hip, if you like, to metal until those two songs came out. And then, so 1987 was my first full year as being into metal and being, understanding what was going on. I was so sort of insulated and naive. I didn't even realize that there would be magazines dedicated to this new sort of music I was into. And I got this out. This is April 1987. This was the first ever Metal Hammer that I ever bought. Not this actual one. I've rebought it for a video a couple of years ago, but I kept it because I know this was the first one. But yeah, April 1987. It blew my mind that such a thing existed as a magazine to give me even more information about, what it was that I'd just discovered. And I remember page 97, I fucking shit myself and I thought, right, well, I can scratch them off my list. I'm never listening to Nasty Savage because Nasty Run put the shits up me. It was fucking terrifying with all them studs and leather on, and I thought, no, I can't listen to them lot. I was more at home with David Coverdale back then.
Right on.
Very fair.
How about you, Alan?
I would just, first off, want to say hi to Steven, long time watcher, first time chatter. Glad
up,
you
Steven?
hopped in the chat tonight. Absolutely. Let's see, kind of about the same place as Jurgen. What 87? I would have been like around 13-ish. So like, me and my friends were starting to pay attention to music on the radio a little bit. I didn't really get interested in heavy stuff at this point. It would be another year more before I'd start really liking a lot of it myself. But I know my sister at this point, was starting also, she's only about a year younger than me, so she was also starting to pick up on like some of the hair bands, that were getting popular with girls her age. And so, yeah, we were starting to pick up some things. When you look back on 1987 now, as people have been pointing out in the chat, it's a very loaded year for heavy metal releases. We've been talking backstage. Just my initial list of trying to brainstorm, like, what album should I talk about? And there's this and this and this and this and this. The initial list was over 40 albums long. It's like, it's kind of nuts. And it's interesting because usually when you hear people talking about what was the best year for, big legendary heavy metal albums, I think many people kind of gravitate to either 1984 or 1986. Mike V said a minute ago in the chat, like, loves 87, but 86 is his favorite. And I think a lot of people would be the same way, though I gotta say the list for 87 is crazy good.
It's sick.
Yeah. I've been thinking this week, like, why doesn't it get, as many of those theoretical votes 84 and 86? And the only thing I could come up with is that despite all the, great releases, many of which we'll talk about tonight, your real top tier bands skipped 1987. A lot of them had albums in 86 and then 88. You're missing 5 big ones off the top. There's no new Iron Maiden album. There's no Priest album. There's no Metallica, Megadeth, or Slayer.
There is a Metallica
From
There is a
87?
Priest,
from
but
A7,
we'll get to that.
You have what, the EP?
the Garage Days,
Okay, so you
which
have
is
half of
huge. Which is
Metallica
huge for me. I listen to the shit out of that record.
Okay, fair enough.
Love,
you can,
love,
if you
love.
want to count the EP, then you've got a Metallic release. But yeah, you don't have new studio albums from those bands. And in particular, with Master of Puppets and Rain and Blood the year before having such a huge impact, I'm beginning to think 87 just lives in the shadow of 1986 a bit, that it's not a drop in quality whatsoever, that it's just, you had monster albums, including, most of those monster bands I just named, the year before. And some of those bands come back in 1988 with, top tier releases again. And so 87, it's kind of the middle child almost, where it just doesn't quite get recognized as much as it should. But as we'll see tonight, the list is insanely good. There's some other trends we'll talk about that folks have already been picking up on in the chat too, as far as what styles of metal were popular, what things hadn't quite shown up yet. So yeah, it's a very interesting year. Really excited to talk about it with y'all.
Right on. And for me, I was 16 years old. I've been into metal, I don't know, probably 84 but leading up to that, Kiss was my band as a kid. And then, I got into Dio and Ozzy. And so, I mean, when I started getting into the heavier stuff, it wasn't that awkward of a transition. It wasn't something on the radio that turned me. It was friends that were starting to go heavier. I was kind of, they were showing me Metallica and stuff early on, and I'd be like, oh, those vocals are dumb, I don't like it. But that switches as you smarten up a bit and get you acclimated to the aggression. But 87, I'm looking at the list and I'm seeing my high school years. I'm driving. 16 here in the US is when you can start driving. Got my first vehicle, a ginormous 1979 GMC Jimmy, which is a gigantic Blazer, and put a tape deck in it, and I drove all over the place, through the graveyards, listening to music, in the woods, around town. I look at a lot of these records and associate, the years before, the years after, but we said this in our year-end list. People that say this is a bad year for metal, man, I just don't get those people, because every year there's something that's great. And this year is no exception. There might have been some of the heavy hitters the year before, the year after, but man, the stuff here is just such a big impact on my life for sure. But it's been fun digging and be reminded, some of these I haven't listened to in a while too. So it's going to be this week, the follow-up. I'm going to be picking away at some of this stuff, but we probably have a lot to talk about. And we're going to start with you, Jurgen. What would be your first pick?
Okay, I picked so much stuff. I'm going to do it in batches, but the first thing I want to talk about is the upcoming death metal scene. It's not really albums, but demos. Like Amon released their first Feasting the Beast demo. Autopsy had a demo back then.
Yeah, Severed Survival came out in 89.
Yeah. Morbid Angel did the Abominations 3-song demo. Speaking of Morbid Angel, we had Incubus with their demo that later came out on an EP. Pestilence, both of their demos came out in 1987. We had Abomination that later became Brutality. We had a 2-song demo from Mercedes. We had the Syndrome demo tape. Deliverance, their first tape. Most important, Torment, a German band, brought out their 7-inch that I bought when it came out. I bought it just for the cover because it's got a dude with leather and studs fisting a cow. And the single is called Bestial Sex.
Love
my it has two versions. Mine is the piss yellow, and there's a sperm white as well.
And Tipper Gore thought we had issues in America.
Yeah. Do you remember the DRI mascot?
Oh yeah. Sperm over Germany. Oh God.
No.
There you go. I'm done.
All right.
So is he.
Well, I know what for next Christmas what I'm getting for Jurgen. I have the perfect T-shirt idea now. All right, Mike, what you got?
Well, I did anticipate in this stream that Jurgen certainly would go all underground, and I thought maybe you two's got the potential to do that as well. And so, in the interests of balance, I didn't. I've kept everything very mainstream.
Yeah, mine is too kind of ish mainstream.
So this band here, to get back into the sort of 1987 mindset, this is how naive I was. I thought Kiss were an English band in 1987.
They tried to be. I mean,
such was their lack of impact in this country up until this year, and that is the single biggest thing that I sort of envy about you guys over in America and probably Canada. I don't know, but when I hear that you guys were into Kiss and stuff back in the 70s and things like that, growing up as kids and that, I know if I'd have been American and born over there and exposed to that Kiss would have been my all-time favorite band forever, because we had nobody on that sort of level whatsoever. In fact, and no one as early either as Kiss. I mean, to sort of liken it to something that was all the rage over in the UK at something like a similar time, and I can't because Kiss beat them by years and years, but we had Adam and the Ants, and it basically was like a 2-3 year deal, and then it was a thing of the past. Everyone was kind of bored of him, but obviously Kiss have put fucking loads of albums out. They've been on the go for years and years, and I've probably heard the name in dispatches at some point, but it wasn't until they fetched Crazy Nights single out over here that I actually give them a proper listen. And like, I realise now, having all the Kiss stuff and being a fan of them, where this kind of sits with a lot of Kiss fans. But this was as near as we got in the UK to the sort of Kiss mania that you guys will have got, years before. This album got to number 4 over here. I looked this up. The single Crazy Nights got to number 4, and the album got to number 4. And I'm not talking about in the rock charts. I'm talking about up against fucking Madonna's the actual main charts.
Main charts, yeah.
It got to number 4, and so did the single. And this was the year for Kiss in the UK. The following year, they earned a special guest slot on Donington, Monsters of Rock, and I think this album's, it's great. Like every other Kiss album, I don't honestly believe there is a Kiss album with 100% bangers all the way through. Much like I don't believe there is from Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, lots of bands really, but there's enough for me to now be a fan. And a couple of my favourites here is I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. I think that's an absolute fucking beast. And Hell or High Water is another good one. But even, like, I know you're supposed to hate Bang Bang You and stuff like that. And I understand why. It's kind of fucking cheesy, whatever. But I love that album. And that was as close as we got over here to some sort of Kiss mania. I mean, where were you guys at with them in '87? I know you'll have been fan. I know Marty. I know Jurgen hates them. I know Marty loves them. But where were you at?
I've been on a big Kiss. I've been on a big Kiss revival this year. So that's probably why I'm in a good mood. That album is tough. I like Asylum. I think that album came out before it. I think that's a really good album. So I mean, I like some glam era Kiss because it still sounds like Kiss. I mean, that album there, it kind of seemed like there was the internal struggles and the songwriting wasn't in top form, and they weren't writing as a band. They'd been writing with outside writers for so long at that point. But I mean, I've got the only record I don't have is the one that came after that, Hot in the Shade. I just can't bring myself to buy it. It's so.
Oh, I love that record. I think it's great.
You know,
I know it's long, too long.
It amazes me, for the US and UK being allies. In a lot of ways, there's similarities between us for sure, but it always seemed like culturally with music, UK was always behind. With thrash metal, it's weird. It's weird to me. I don't get why. I mean, you're so close to Europe, whereas like Germany was so far ahead as far as thrash goes and stuff. UK is kind of in the middle a little bit, and I don't know. Am I wrong here saying that you guys were always a bit behind?
I don't think we were behind. I think we were always lacking in ability. I think we knew what was great. We knew what was awesome in America and Germany, but we just couldn't reproduce it in this country. I think our heyday was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden, yeah.
And beyond those five, I think it's like, oh, fucking hell, now you're struggling. I accept that beyond that, in all the subgenres, we are playing catch-up all the time to America and Germany.
But you've got like Duran Duran. I mean, they're a huge pop band. They're still relevant today. My wife's a huge Duran
pop
Duran
music.
fan. Pop music, you're ahead of the curve. With the Beatles were so revolutionary. Like them or hate them, which I'm not a big fan. You can't deny their contribution. What they did was fantastic. So I mean, England's always been like a beacon.
Yeah.
But I think the UK, like Mike said, they brought us the hard rock stuff, the first heavy metal stuff, the new wave of British heavy metal that sparked a lot of sub-genres like speed metal, black metal, or even the beginnings of thrash metal. So they have every right in the world to rest on their laurels after 1982 or 1983.
Yeah.
But rest on their laurels, they did. They were behind the curve thereafter, I think. And I don't think anyone over here would argue that either. We're always imitating and cheaply as well.
Martin, they were mentioned. The Sabbath, Priest, they're mentioned.
Yeah, it's funny because the UK has obviously come up with a lot of great sort of classic bands, but sometimes stuff from the UK does have a hard time getting over in the US, and the same is true the other way around. Some of the stuff that's very big in the US, it has a very hard time breaking through in the UK, or it takes a very long time too. So it's really interesting. I didn't realize Kiss had such a non-presence over there for so long.
It surprises me as well, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and it does kind of make sense. There are bands in the UK, that can sell, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of records, and in the US, you'd never hear their name mentioned. And
they will have had the fans. They will have had the fans, Alan. It's just that, you know what it's like when you're young. If you and your mates don't understand it, you kind of figure that the rest of the world doesn't understand it. But they will have had their fans, the hardcore fans. Sure. But that was their year. If you look back at their chart performances in the UK, Crazy Nights will stand apart. They were that was like Kiss Mania in this country that year, 87 and 88.
Wow, cool, interesting. Yeah.
What about you, Jurgen, on the Kiss thing? Would you want to touch on that?
I think Mike is right. Kiss were a big band, but they were not even close to how big they were in the US. And my first contact was also the Crazy Nights 7-inch. But I started there and I stopped there.
Well, to be honest, even by the time Hot in the Shade come out, the party was over in the UK. It was gone again. And I think that's got to do, to be honest, I think they were quite close to, Bon Jovi had probably a hell of a lot to do with how successful the Crazy Nights album was. Because a lot of people were switched on to the Slippery When Wet and Final Countdown albums. And that's a similar, you're going to get a similar fan base with the Crazy Nights album, aren't you?
Yeah, right.
About you, Alan, do you have anything you want to say about? Oh, you already did. You talked about Kiss, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to contribute on that one. But yeah, very interesting.
How about your 87?
All right. I'm going to start, kind of like Mike, in the in what we now might think of, as the shallower end of the metal pool. Like I said before, we're 12, 13 years old, middle school, kids in class were just starting to check out some heavier stuff. And one of the big things that was huge by 87, glam metal was a major force in this country. Yes, a lot of us are embarrassed to admit it now, and a lot of those albums don't hold up, but you had at least 2 monster releases that, if we're going to talk metal from 87, I would at least tip my hat to, and I'll cover both of them here at once, just to kind of get them out of the way. You have Def Leppard's Hysteria comes out the fall of that year. I know this is not most people's favorite Def Leppard album. Pyromania was kind of the album that broke them big. It came out 4 years earlier in 83 and sold 10 million copies in the US. They had to wait 4 years to get this out, due in part, of course, to Rick Allen's accident. 4 years is an eternity for a band. I mean, that's the difference between being a headliner and being, a bunch of boomers that nobody wants to listen to. Pyromania had sold 10 million copies. This would eventually sell 20 million copies in the US. The never-ending hype for this album was astonishing. You had videos from this thing that would be, in that top daily MTV video countdown, not just for weeks, for seasons of the year. You could not get the video for Pour Some Sugar on Me, out of rotation on MTV. You have 7 out of the 12 songs were hit singles just from this one album. So we can say what we want about it, being the different electronic drum sound, and obviously miles away from what they had done earlier in their career. But this was really one of 2 big albums for that generation of kids. The other one that year is, of course, this one, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. This one came out in the middle of 87. It took a little while to get traction. I just said Hysteria sold 20 million copies in the US. This one has sold 30 million copies in the US. It's something like the 7th best-selling album of all time. That's putting it up against every Madonna and Beatles and Garth Brooks and anything else you want to throw at it. That's insane. And again, yes, I know this is not heavy by the standards of all the other stuff we're going to talk about tonight. But for bands that at least, by the standards of the day, were relatively heavy, compare these to the tripe you hear on pop FM radio these days. There's nothing that even comes remotely close to this in terms of being, a little bit heavy or edgy or anything. And for these things, they debut it. They both make #1 on the Billboard charts. They both produce multiple hit singles. They're both still now pushing 40 years later, considered, staples of that generation of music. Glam metal was definitely a viable thing in 1987, and it was a big part of, the more mainstream market for heavy metal. And while we don't, think of them as, great heavy metal albums per se anymore, these are the kinds of albums that did eventually get a lot of people into more serious bands. These were a gateway for some folks to get into the heavier stuff and eventually start checking out the Metallicas and the Iron Maidens and such. So they served their purpose. They were a big part of the scene at the time. They are the only glam metal ones I will show tonight. We'll get on to some quote-unquote real metal here next go-round. But I think you have to at least acknowledge how big a footprint this little branch of metal had
Absolutely.
in 1987.
All over the radio, all over MTV.
Everyone, everywhere, every shirt, every poster. Yeah, and MTV's influence on that, of course. You know, you're in prime MTV dominance, you know, by 87 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I pulled that Hysteria cassette out as well because I remember not knowing who they were back then, but hearing on the television that album had been 4 years in the making and so many £1 million in the making, and these guys were a big deal and you must take notice of them, you know. And I remember thinking, when I remember getting the album, and somewhere I heard that somebody wanted to, maybe it was Mutt Lang that produces it. I honestly don't know.
Yep,
but
it is Lange. Yep.
I heard that he'd wanted to make like the rock equivalent of Michael Jackson's Bad, sort of, you know, like have a load of singles. He had 7 singles on that album, so you'll have 7 on this one or whatever. I've got to say as well, the singles are the only songs I like on that album. Normally, as a heavy metal fan, you buy an album and you discover the deep cuts in it and think, oh yeah, that's far better than the singles. But with that album, I kind of stick to the singles off it, and I don't really care for the rest.
I agree. Same here.
All right. Well, I don't really have these in any sort of order. I figured it didn't matter because all these were in pretty constant rotation. I will start with this one first, though. I was completely enamored, and still am enamored with this album. R.I.P. This is my favorite Corner album, which says a lot because the first 4 are great. They're absolutely great, start to finish. Mental Vortex, they started to streamline their sound a bit, which bums me out. But the songs are really good. Grin is where some people like Grin, that's great. But this here is a great record. I like how dark it is. It's busy when it needs to be. The songs are very well constructed and catchy, but there's just this underlying dark vibe to it, kind of evil sounding, and I've always appreciated that. You know, from the whole art aesthetic. You got the urns there and the red curtain and the photograph of the graveyard. This is just a classic album, and I've always loved. I mean, I love American thrash. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But there's just something about the Europeans. The Europeans, they just had more of a gritty, dark vibe to it, and I just, Germany in particular, these guys, of course, these guys were roadies for Celtic Frost, who are of course great as well, but I was just completely enamored. I wanted to be over there as a part of it, and my obsession, and you'll see a bunch of records here that are all from that area as well. But Corner R.I.P. I figured that'd be a good start. I listened to that record nonstop, and I still put it on, and makes me think of being younger, and just still blown away at how well the songs are written, and the musicianship top notch, great stuff.
Oh yeah, great album.
All right,
I didn't actually hear that back in '87. I didn't hear Coroner until Masked Jackal came out on video.
Oh, it was close, though. It's the album after it, so yeah. Yep. Okay, Jurgen, back to you.
Okay, let's get into the mainstream a little bit. Sepultura brought out their second album, Schizophrenia. It was a lot cleaner than the old stuff, mainly because Andreas Kisser joined the band. This is, by the way, my old Cogomelo Records pressing. I was quite impressed with that. We all heard Bestial Devastation and Morbid Visions, but that one was a step ahead of all the other stuff that came from South America. So they set a mark with that album. And I have to thank you for pulling the topic of a certain year, because I could leave my glasses over there, because I don't have to look up the year on the back of the cover.
Right. Okay, good pick. And I saw that title there too, but I did not hear that until the year Beneath the Remains came out. Beneath the Remains is my first Sepultura.
Same as me, Marty. Yep. In itself, that was my first encounter with them.
Yep.
I came to that band because I read all the old reviews, and they always got 1 out of 7 points in Metal Hammer, and we were interested in all shit.
What they thought was shit anyway.
In 1987, we started trading records with a Brazilian guy, so that's why I have the original press.
Nice. All right, Mike.
Yeah, I've a lot of my picks, not all of them, but a lot of them are. See, I didn't hear Schizophrenia in '87. It was '89. I've tried to stick with stuff that I heard in '87 for the most part. There's a couple, unless other people show them, and I've picked stuff, that I didn't think was brilliant in '87. Judas Priest live. Now, 87, I seen that. I was 14. Nothing could have been more boring to me than that. That was just like, right, well, I needn't check that band out. That is a copper-coloured album cover with some hands on it. I'm not remotely interested. Who the fuck are Judas Priest? I think they're probably old as fuck. I don't care. That was where I was back then. I've since grown to really enjoy them, and I still don't think I'm as big a fan as some people. Mostly America. I do think America took to Judas Priest more than the UK. But I do enjoy them. I do really, really like them anyway. But where were you lot at in 87 with Judas Priest? Because I always find it strange. These people, the young people in the VC or whatever, and they're into Dio and Ozzy and Judas Priest and all that. This was old as fuck that I didn't care about 35 years ago. I'm like, I don't fucking care about that. No way. I want Testament. That's up to date, Where were you all at with Priest in 87?
Jurgen?
That live album was my first contact because, if I remember right, that was album of the month in Metal Hammer magazine. Although
Probably.
It was a live album, and yeah. I did not have any contact with Priest before that one came out. So I slowly, over the years, traced my way back in the history.
They were just like dinosaurs to me back then, and why would I want to check something out as old as that? That sort of thing, like Relics, but obviously, I don't even think you're supposed to like a band for their entire lifespan either. I think it's fine if you like them in the early days and then you leave them alone, or you get into them later on in life or whatever. I don't think you should expect to like a lot of bands throughout the entire career, especially if they've had a 50-year career. But they've been somebody I can go back to in my middle age and enjoy, but there's no way I was going to enjoy them in 1987.
Yeah, and then we were 12, 13, 14 years old, and you saw at that age, the pictures of Rob Halford.
Yeah.
With his little hair, the blonde. Yeah.
That's not going to do it. That's not going to do it, is it? To fucking Jesus, just like no.
What about you and Judas Priest, Alan?
Yeah, it was too early for me to know anything about Judas Priest, but one thing about that live album in particular, Mike, I've always thought it has a strange track list for a Priest live album. Like even years later when I was really into Priest, I'd look at that in stores and just like, this is a weird set list to put on a live release. It just always struck me as odd. I mean, I guess indicative of what they were playing at the time, but it was not. It's never been an album. It's just like, oh yeah, I really got to pick this one up and play through these versions of these songs. So,
well,
some odd
kicking
choice,
off
and
it
yeah,
out in
terrible
the cold,
cover too.
strange choice, isn't it, for the start?
Yeah, and terrible cover as well. The cover is another one. Just like, what makes me want to pick this up and look at it in the first place? It just, lousy packaging.
Well, for me, I mentioned it on here before. For some reason, in my neck of the woods, you either liked Priest or you liked Maiden. And I was a Maiden guy. So the only Priest I own Turbo on tape, which to be your only point of reference for Judas Priest, that's a tough sell, but I liked it for what it was. I have a bit of a nostalgia around that album now, but of course heard Another Thing Coming and all their hits on the radio, Northern Michigan rock radio and shit. But of course now I love Priest, and I again regret all the years that I missed. I could have been enjoying them, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that there was a videotape, the VHS that came out with that album too. I actually have the videotape. It's good. Track listing, I can understand your thoughts on that, but considering the era that the tour is for, I mean, it's to be expected, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I suppose so. Just a little strange.
It was the image for me, the album cover, and like Jurgen says, Rob Halford's hairstyle. I was like, I was thinking Joey Tempest, John Bon Jovi, and Rob Halford with these little bits that just come to there, slicked back like he just got out the shower. It looked more like Bridget Nielsen.
All right, Alan, you're up.
All right, let's see. Jurgen showed a bunch of sort of early death metal demos. One thing about 87 is that a lot of the more extreme types of metal were still at the demo stage. There's one or two notable albums that I'm guessing someone's going to show eventually tonight. But yeah, for album releases, death metal was just barely starting to poke through. Black metal, you still had some first wave black metal things, but again, not a lot. And of course, we were years, you have, the first sign of what might turn into black metal from Norway in 87 with Death Crush. But it's interesting. 87 is one of these years where these more extreme genres are just starting to make it onto vinyl. And one I picked for that, again, the style that had been around for a few years, but more at the demo stage and the live stage, you start to see grind showing up with Napalm Death gets their Scum album released in 87. The album famously composed of two different set lists by two different band lineups. But this obviously would do quite. Now here's one that did quite well in the UK right away. Got a lot of interest through John Peel and all of that, and would set the stage for a lot of bands to follow in their wake. Folks were commenting in the chat earlier, and I agree with them, and I think we've talked about this on other episodes. That in a lot of ways, the British scene, the UK, they kind of just skipped thrash to some extent and went from new wave of British heavy metal into this stuff. Because when you have this coming out in 1987, I've already kind of bypassed the heaviness of thrash and gone into something that's a little bit more insane and over the top. So I would hate to have been a British thrash band putting out an album in 1988 after this was already on the market and quite visible in the public eye. It seems like you would have been playing second fiddle all the way. So just another extreme genre that is kind of getting its first full-length album exposure in 87. Again, certainly had been lurking in the underground for a while. But with 87, you start to see grind, you start to see death, you see just a hint of black, second wave black, almost, starting to make their very first appearances. They won't have a huge impact on the scene in 87, but they are there. They're starting to show up a little bit. But I thought this would be, this is kind of my representation for, the more extreme end of heavy metal tonight.
All right.
It was, that Scum album was seen as by a lot of thrash people, a lot of thrash fans, as probably like humorous thrash, like jokey thrash. It was too much, to be honest.
I can imagine
that album is still too much. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's fucking ridiculous, and they didn't really get seen as a serious entity till the follow-up. To be honest, in the UK, that was they were like, yeah, okay, Napalm Death, oh yeah, fucking mental. You know, it was like telling the world's craziest joke or whatever. Have you heard the one about blah blah blah? It was bizarre, and everyone accepted that it was like the nth degree. But I didn't know anyone that was a serious fan of the content of it. Do you know what I mean? It was more like we used to egg each other on. Have you heard it? How many songs could you put up with before you wanted to knock it off and throw the tape across the room?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely.
It was more like
some
an
people it was almost
endurance.
a novelty.
Yeah, it was a novelty. It was more like an endurance test rather than genuine listening pleasure, you know. And to me, it hasn't really altered from that position.
I can't tell you the last time I spun that. It's been. It's a challenging listen. Just is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim I'm in love with the album or anything, but I will take it out once in a blue moon when I'm in the mood for that style and give it a spin. So it's still fun.
I played it last week with my girlfriend, and she loved it.
Right?
Cheers to her. That was cool.
No, she didn't.
I don't think that was the case. Yeah.
Maybe not. All right, Marty, what have you got next?
Well, before I flood this with a bunch of German bands, we better get this one. This album was huge for me. I love this album so much. This is my favorite Sacrifice album. For Determination, Reanimated, Terror Strikes, Afterlife, Light of the End. Holy crap. Pyrokinesis. Oh, this album is just from start to finish perfect. They took the intensity of their songwriting on the debut. They gave it a professional production. You could tell there's some money behind this production. Canada's attempt at trying to be a little bit Metallica, but the album after is where they started to kind of fall into the Metallica vibe a little bit. But here it still has the speed metal vibe at times to it. It's just great thrash. This is just really, really good. I love the wonky, weird colored pencil cover. Everything about this record just slays to me. It's just so good. They were never this good again. Sorry, they just weren't. And it bums me out. I went, for one of the first shows I ever went to was the first ever Michigan Death Fest, where they played just before Morbid Angel. I never even heard Morbid Angel at this point. And I went to see Sacrifice, and they were blown off the stage by all these new death and thrash metal bands that I never heard of before. So this band had a short for me. I know they're back together and people like the stuff they're doing. It still isn't as good as this. Their first two albums are the ones for me.
Yeah. That one in particular, that was my go-to speed metal album for a while after I got it.
Endless spins. Endless. I look at it, I want to put it on. It's so good.
Yeah.
Jurgen.
Okay, Alan was talking about the early black metal stuff, and probably the earliest black metal band put out an album in 1987. And it was the AOR album. By Venom.
It's fun. It's so bad, but it's fun. I like it.
Yeah, just listen to the backing vocals on Under a Spell. They are so off.
Black Christmas.
Yeah, everything is out of tune on the album. I bought that when it came out, just the same reason I bought all the old Sepultura and Virus and stuff, because that one has gotten 1 out of 7 points. And I remember the final line in the review was, Mantas come back, all is forgiven. But I still love the album. I don't know.
I don't hate it. I mean, Kronos has got a good charismatic voice. He just is. He can sell a lot of, And it is obviously Venom, like you said. It's the AOR record. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it glam, but it's got a shimmer to it, which you don't want to utter in the same sentence as Venom. I know Mike hates Venom. He got rid of all of his Venom shit.
Yeah.
Mike, you should check out that one. That one will be Mike's favorite Venom album. After all, I found the T-shirt of that on eBay, and I was thinking about ordering that.
You know what? I was talking to Mantis last year, and and he said he would be on the channel with me. And then I thought, you know what? Fuck that, because I'm gonna have to pretend I give a fuck about Venom, and I can't be asked, so I can't.
Right.
But you're looking of him.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
Right. One of the I wasn't into this album in '87. I was into a couple of songs off it as singles, but not the album. And it was a very early sort of release for me. And it's basically them fetching back the Genesis style Marillion clutching at straws. And back as a 14-year-old kid, I used to play the song Incommunicado on repeat dozens of times. But of course, as a mature man, as a middle-aged man, I can see that that's like the low-hanging fruit on the album. That's the sort of that's designed to be a chart hit. It lacks the complexity and the dynamic of a lot of the rest of the songs on the album, but that was, as a kid, what I latched onto, that and Sugar Mice. But it's a fantastic album by a guy that I wouldn't call Fish so much as a singer as a poet. Really, he's more a poet that can hold a tune rather than a singer that can write lyrics.
Right.
And this is, I don't know anything about Genesis, quite honestly, but I have dipped a toe in, and this is more than similar to Genesis. So it's obviously it's basically Genesis worship at a time when Genesis were really not popular, but Marillion managed to carve out a career from emulating them. And it's a fantastic album. I love the Fish era and the first Fish album. What do you guys think of Marillion? I know I don't even know if they toured outside the UK. I'm not that up on them, to be honest with you.
I have not heard any Marillion.
Yeah, it's one of those names I've always heard, but I've never checked them out very much. I think Jeff over at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades did a deep dive on them a while back, and I again saw the name, meant to check it out, and never really got back to it. So sadly, I can't really chime in.
Jurgen,
I came into Marillion maybe about 8 or 10 years ago when I was starting big on the UK prog scene with bands like Genesis and stuff. I love the first 4 albums. They are all great. The live album is great, and they've got the best of. But I never ever cared about anything that came out after that.
No,
I never even tried to listen to it.
No, I haven't. It's very proggy and sort of poetic in the song titles, in the song lyrics and stuff. And I think if you go into it and you're interested in lyrics and storytelling, you'll be satisfied, won't you? But if you go into it looking for a vocal performance, well, you're going to be let down, because he's not a fantastic singer. He can get by, but the real magic is in the storytelling.
All right, Alan.
All right, so I've taken care of the glam. probably covered all the more extreme end of stuff for the night. Let's get to thrash. And as folks have been pointing out in the chat, thrash really starts to rule the roost hard by '87 if it didn't already. And as I mentioned before, 3 of the big 4 of American thrash did not release a new studio album this year, but the 4th one did, and it became one of their most recognizable albums. I've got to talk about Among the Living. This one, fan favorite. It still has a lot of their most recognizable songs to this day, with Caught in a Mosh, I Am the Law, Nice Fucking Life, Indians, which gets played once every 13 minutes on Ozzy's Boneyard. Please, Ozzy's Boneyard, stop playing Indians. We know the song.
Or Time got the Joe Jackson cover. Yeah,
that one only comes up once every 23 minutes. So
right?
it kind of shows up on Time. But Indians, we got to rotate that out, guys. We just got to. Nevertheless, great album. I feel like this Anthrax is one of those bands where the catalog's a little uneven for me, but this is one of the albums I like. For me, around 87, 88, this was also one of the first times a kid at my school showed up with a denim vest with a back patch on it, and this was the back patch. It had the Anthrax logo and the cover art, with the guy highlighted in the middle, and he was a kid from one of the trailer parks, and so everyone's just it kind of immediately assumed like, ooh, that must be like a really scary, dangerous album and band and stuff because that guy's wearing it. But he was actually a pretty cool guy. But yeah, and I did not hear the album until later on. But definitely one of the earlier true heavy metal albums to make an appearance in my middle school, and I always remember him in that jacket. So yeah, this is one of the biggest thrash entries of 1987 from the United States. As Marty insinuated a few minutes ago, we're going to be talking about some more German albums real soon, I suspect. The German big 4 of thrash were a little more prolific in '87 than the U.S. version, but yeah, still a good album here, even if some of the songs have gotten played an awful lot over the years. It's still still a fun album. Still, I'd say one of the benchmark albums for 1987.
I was obsessed with that. I played that album 5 times a day when it came out.
Nice.
Yeah,
At least.
Yeah, I was the same. Although I never really thought "I Am the Law" was a fantastic song, to be honest, because putting myself back in 1987, I didn't know the fuck Judge Dredd was. I'm not into comics or anything, so I didn't make that correlation. And the back half of the side 2 has always been the side of real importance to me, to be quite honest. Although I'm not going to deny the first side's absolutely fantastic, but Caught in a Mosh and I'm the Law have never really been 2 songs that I've been championing hard. Among the Living and Skeleton in the Closet, yes, and side 2, Indians, One World's where it's at for me on there. Imitation of Life. It's a fantastic album. I think it was the first thrash album that I bought with my own money. Sort of, I heard Ride the Lightning previous to that. Thought Fight Fire with Fire was an absolute joke. Just laughed it out this fucking stereo. That's too extreme. Those vocals are too extreme. No one can be serious if they're like that. That's bullshit. But 3 or 4 weeks later, I was buying Among the Living and thinking it was the best thing ever.
Yep. When you're that age, you can very rapidly, get into
turn on a penny.
Yeah, 2 months earlier, you hated it, and within the next 30 days, you're wearing the shirt and listening to it constantly. I think it's happened to all of us with different bands and different styles.
With Among the Living, I think you can hear the influence the SOD project had on the riffing of the album. What is the last song on Among the Living called?
Imitation of Life.
Yeah,
Imitation of Life.
Yeah.
MOD re-recorded that song with different lyrics, but the same riffs. written by Scott Ian on the MOD for USA album. I think it's called "Don't Feed the Bears."
Shit, I never noticed that.
Huh.
Yeah, it's the same song, same beginning, same riffing, just different vocals.
I'll have to give that a spin.
Mhm.
Alrighty then. Well, this band during my high school years was absolutely humongous, and that would be Overkill's Taking Over. I was a humongous fan of Feel the Fire, still my all-time favorite Overkill album. And honestly, they changed a bit on this record. They got a little bit more, they got thicker sounding. They leaned into the metal side as opposed to the punk side. I'm not saying that the first album is a straight up punk record, because it's not, but it has a definite punk vibe to it, which I always loved. The mixture between the metal and the punk on that really worked great, and Blitz's vocals was the perfect vehicle for that. Here, it's just more a thicker guitar tone. You could tell they doubled or tripled or quadrupled the guitar tracks on here. I still love Rat Skate's drumming on here. I think he was a great drummer for this band. He, again, sold that punk aesthetic a bit in his playing style. But Deny the Cross, Wrecking Crew, I mean, this whole album is really, really solid. I haven't spun it in a while, but when this came out, again, kind of like Among the Living, this thing didn't leave my player. I spun this. I had like 4 Overkill shirts walking around school. I almost had like an Overkill shirt for every day of the week. That for a couple of years, it's all I wore was Overkill shirts. This band, you know, and then the stuff that came afterwards too, Under the Influence was kind of hit or miss for me, but in the Years of Decay and Horoscope, this band, the first chunk of their career is still to this day some of my favorite thrash out there for sure. Taking Over.
You got in there early. I didn't even hear Overkill till Hello from the Gutter, to be honest.
MTV.
And I thought it was James Hetfield in the video.
Right.
Bobby Gustafson is just an absolute dead ringer for Hetfield in that video, isn't he?
Same Rip Black Pants, same Explorer.
Yeah. I mean, Years of Decay has always been my big Overkill album, but I love Taking Over as well. I've got that. But I didn't, you know, I've been trying to go back to what I heard. I didn't hear Taken Over in '87, to be quite honest.
Right.
I was getting into Overkill in 1987, but it was the Fuck You EP.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, I love that. I had it on tape. Loved it. I even had a Fuck You t-shirt. My parents wouldn't let me wear it to school. I had to wear it around the house. I wasn't leaving the house unless it was a size too small, so I didn't feel comfortable wearing it out of the house because, you know, fat kid. But, you know,
my friend who's just died there in March last year, Phil. He got arrested and fined for wearing a Cradle of Filth, Jesus is a Cunt t-shirt.
Oh yeah, I remember that shirt.
In England. What?
Yeah, he got it, and his mother was like, his parents had him really late in life, so they were really old, and she knew he was at court, and she knew he'd been fined, and she knew it was in the paper, but what she didn't know was what his t-shirt said on it, and I remember I was in his house, and it was a sort of house that everything was really oldie worldy. They had little doilies for you to put your drink on.
Yeah.
And everything like that, you know. And she said to him, Phil, and he went, what? We were going out for a few drinks, and she went, what did it say on your t-shirt? And he went, oh, I'm not telling you, Mum. And she went, Phil, did it say that?
That's funny. All right, Mike, you're back.
Right.
Did we skip Jurgen?
Oh, we did. Sorry.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no problem. Alan was talking about Napalm Death, and you can, in 1987, you can hear the chaos in the music sneaking into it with stuff like that.
That's a great record. I didn't realize that came out in '87. I listened to that a lot too.
Cryptic Slaughters, Money Talks. Another thing with only 1 out of 7 points, so I had to get it.
It's a good album. I
And we-
prefer the one before it and the one after it a bit more because they're a little bit raw, but
But
yeah.
Convicted and the
Stream of Consciousness.
Stream of Consciousness.
I only know Stream of Consciousness. I don't know that
That
one.
sounds like it was recorded in a garage, which I love. I love that Stream of Consciousness record. It's just so raw. Sounds like them playing live, you know.
We had stuff like Impulse Manslaughter's first came out in '87, and
The Accused, more fun than an open casket funeral.
The Accused, right?
Where am I?
Wehrmacht, Shark Attack. COC did the Technocracy.
That's a
EP.
good record. Yeah, that's a good EP.
Did DRI release anything in '87?
Crossover, I believe.
Crossover
I
is
think so.
boring.
Yeah.
Crossover is a shitty record.
I don't like that record either. Dealing with It's their top of the mountain album for me. I love that album.
So we had chaos in the music.
Yep, it was perfect. Yeah. All right, Mike.
Cryptic Slaughter, Last Laugh. That was the first song I ever headbanged and played air guitar to at my local rock night. My friend took Stream of Consciousness down and we put Last Laugh on. And because he took the effort to take the record down and it was our first visit to the rock night, it was like, yeah, okay, well, we'll get up on the dance floor. And in the morning, I couldn't fucking hold my head up. I was like, oh, shit. What's
Bang
going on?
over. You got a bang over. Yep.
Right, well, just to show that 1987 is a never-ending pit of metal, I'm going to show an album that Jurgen sent me last year that I knew about back in '87. I will be honest, I did know about it, but I hadn't heard it, and it wasn't in the shops easy for me to pick up, and that is Death Wish.
Oh yeah.
What's it called? At the Edge of Damnation. They have one called Demon Preacher, which came out the year after, but this is the only time I seen these guys was on Lemmy had a t-shirt on of Death Wish in an interview one day. I was like, oh, I must check them out, and that's as far as it ever went until Jurgen sent me this CD last year, and it's UK thrash, and I realised that UK thrash didn't even scratch the surface when compared to the American and the German scenes. But and that's quite an unusual album. It's musically, I would say the closest thing I would consider it to is Nuclear Assault. It's similar to Nuclear Assault, especially in the mid-paced sections, and you can hear that twangy bass coming through like Lilka's sound. It's similar to Nuclear Assault, but the singer, you know, I just wish he would do more of what he does very early on in the album. He's kind of unspectacular. When he goes for his shrieky highs, he very quickly runs out of steam. It's like he'll do a very short burst of, and then stop. But he has this thing like a melodic low voice. And what's the first song? In the name of God, you know, he does that at the start of the album. And if he done more of that throughout the album, I think it would be better. But he doesn't. He opts for the sort of generic, well, just voice really. It's not high, not low, very, very unspectacular. But being English and it being a thrash album, you manage your expectations and you end up enjoying it when you really want to. And I enjoy this album and the follow-up. But I realise I'm under no illusions about where UK thrash sits, sort of in the pantheon of thrash in general.
It's weird. It's weird. I mean, there's some good stuff, but it's not like mind-blowing stuff. What else is from, you know, like Virus, well, Zentrix, another band, Acid
Sabbath's
Rain.
the cream of the crop, isn't it? Sabbath's the cream of the crop.
Totally the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
100%. No question. Yep.
And to be fair, they'd be top tier from no matter where they were from.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I think what it was, the UK thrash scene didn't have any money invested in it, and we were always hanging on the coattails of Germany and America. And I think
Onslaught.
in
Good
America,
one.
I don't know about Germany. I've no idea. But in America, you're told that anyone can be anything if you set your mind to it. And in the UK, you're told, "Fucking sit down, you stupid bastard. You're no good at fuck all." And honestly, that's what the UK is like. You don't have that American pride behind you. Whereas you could have something that was mediocre, but they would have the backing of the community or whatever. And it'd be like, yeah, USA or whatever. In the UK, it's like, sit the fuck down, you stupid bastard. You shit. And honestly, that is anyone will tell you that's. And so these bands will have been. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them might have been capable of more. But I bet you they listened to their friendship groups, and it stagnated them in a way. It held them back. And I would imagine Sabbath were the only ones that absolutely embraced the metal scene and what they wanted to do wholeheartedly, and that's why they're the best. What do you reckon? I mean, obviously you guys don't know. You guys don't live here, so you probably don't know what I'm saying. But I don't know if there's anyone from the UK in the chat. Maybe they'll agree.
I've heard other people comment on that kind of mentality, in the UK. So I get what you're saying there. But yeah, I think one thing Sabbath, if they had another secret weapon, it was just Martin Walkyier as a lyricist, just cramming so much information into songs in a very articulate way, but still making it sound really evil and kind of crazy, pissed off at the same time. So they
were on an absolutely different level. I mean, like you say, Alan, they would hold their own in any field, in any country's thrash metal. They were just phenomenal.
Ryan.
And yes, Ryan, almost 10:30, man. I'm surprised it's taken this long.
It's his third one. Come on.
Oh, okay. Maybe he just didn't advertise the others.
But it's funny because the thrash, there's some good thrash in England, but they did the punk better, and they did the grindcore. I mean, obviously, grindcore emerged out of punk for sure, but and eventually death metal.
They were always trailing behind. That was the problem. All you were ever getting from the UK was, apart from Sabbath, was them lot trying to emulate their heroes. Mm-hmm. That's it. Acid Rain tried to emulate Anthrax. Zentrix tried to emulate Testament and Metallica.
Big time.
That type of deal, really.
Yeah, you had that show we did on your channel where you're trying to turn each other onto new albums. You picked that first Zentrix, Shattered Existence, and there's direct Testament riffs on there. I'm like, oof, wow, those are, you can tell who their influences are on here. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, Jurgen.
It's Alan?
No, is it? Damn it.
Yep.
I'm trying to keep up with the chat and be in the conversation. I lose track of who's what and what's what. Sorry.
Marty, start drinking.
I am. That's another problem.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep.
It's all good. But I think it's time to move into some German thrash metal. And all four of the German big four thrash bands had a studio album in '87. So right away, that it's going to be pretty stacked. The one I picked here to get this part rolling, my favorite of the four, which is probably not a popular opinion, but it's just my favorite of the four, Sodom's Persecution Mania. Yeah, this is the album where Sodom obviously tightens up their sound a bit more. Some people, and I like early Sodom. I really enjoy the earlier stuff. Later Sodom I get a little bored with sometimes, to be honest. But this album I really love. I feel like they hit a good in-between here where they finally sound a little bit more professional and tight. But the album is still has that kind of raw, dirty sound to it as well.
Evil.
So it's still a little bit evil. Yeah, not as evil as what came before, but yeah, it's still evil enough that it can definitely check that out as well.
Christ
and
Passion, so dark.
Just a great, Christ Passion, Nuclear Winter. Yeah, and I'll say, people, of course, will be, kind of divided on the presence of the cover song. I think it's one of those rare cases where the cover song actually works pretty well in the context of the album. Sure, they could have left it out and done something else, but, if they were going to pick a song to include, Iron Fist is a good choice. It fits in with the style of the album, and they do a good version of it. So, yeah, it actually kind of blends into the album much better than most cover songs do. So, yeah, probably my favorite Sodom album. Haven't really sat and thought about that before.
Mine for sure.
But if it's not, I'm not sure what is. Obsessed by Cruelty would be close, but it's a different beast. So, yes, there's 3 other really good German thrash albums, at least, probably more, but at least 3 more we need to talk about tonight. And while they're all good, I would pick this if I have, first choice in the draft. Persecution Mania is the one for me.
All right.
I'm probably like you, Alan. I think I might gravitate towards the slightly earlier stuff. That is not my favourite Sodom, but I don't go that far into it either. I tend to have the 80s stuff and M16, and I feel like I'm good after that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some more than 90s stuff and maybe some of the early 2000s. I couldn't even tell you. I mean, we're measuring in decades since I've played those albums. I just never revisit them.
The first wave black metal stuff, the first wave black metal sound appeals to me, and they do that quite well.
Oh yeah, very much. All right, Marty, it's over to you now.
All right. Well, Jurgen brought up the crossover stuff, so we're gonna go with that. I spun the crap out of this when it came out. Carnivore Retaliation. Talk about an album that today probably wouldn't have been made, and if so, it would have been billed as a different. It would have been billed as a completely different type of record, lumped in with a unsavory crew of people. But obviously, Peter Steele, band before Typo Negative. You got Jesus Hitler on here. Starts off with the intro, Jack Daniels and pizza, someone puking in a toilet. Pretty much signs up what's coming. But you got Suck My Dick on here, Race War, Inner Conflict. This album rules. It really does rule. It's so catchy. It's really a perfect crossover record. It's heavy. It's got the New York hardcore vibe, but with a definite metal push and hit to it. Peter Steele's vocals are just so unique. He had a dark screaming style that he didn't sound like anybody through his entire career. And I still don't have the first Carnivore album, which every time I want to get an original copy, and they don't give those away. So it'll turn up eventually, but this has always been a favorite. I listened to this so many times. It's so catchy and good. The lyrics, if you take them the wrong way, could be interpreted one way, but they're not meant that way. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, great stuff. Awesome album.
I haven't got that one. It's the first one I've got, not that one.
Yeah, I've heard parts of the first one, which is good as well, but this is just, the songs are better. From what I've heard, the songs are better. Okay, Mike, you're back. Wait, Jurgen. I'll get it figured out here.
Just as an addition to the Carnivore record, in between the two Carnivore albums, they changed the guitar player
Mm.
And on the first album, a guy called Keith Alexander played guitar. And in 1987, he released the album Primal Fear Volume 1.
Right
So
on.
I pulled that out. But I wanted to talk about some kind of a triangle thing. When I got through my list, I realized there was like that triangle between speed metal, thrash metal, and normal heavy metal. And a lot of stuff came out that falls in between that. For example, Stricken by Might by EXE, formerly known as Executioner.
Right on.
Or Blessed Death.
That came out in 87? Shit.
That came out in 87, yeah.
Oh, man, I love that record. That record, the vocals are insane.
Savage Steel begins with a nightmare. It's speedy, it's got thrash riffs, but it's got melodic vocals. And probably the most well-known of the bunch, Hades.
God, I haven't listened to that in a while. Wow, long time.
Speedy songs, classic heavy metal riffing, melodic vocals.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of stuff like that came out in 1987.
Wow, yeah, great stuff.
So you see what I'm doing here? I'm doing batches of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, those make, those guys.
Because I pulled out too much.
That's a great cluster of metal right there for sure.
Yeah, the Primal Scream record is really good, yeah.
Okay, Mike.
This compilation album is the only thing I ever bothered getting by this band. I found that I delved into other things, but I thought, you know what, this is brilliant and it's all I need. And it was my first introduction to Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, so, that's my introduction as well. That's my first Dead Kennedys album. Yeah.
And I did try. I tried to follow up on this, but I didn't have the interest, quite honestly. But I mean, the track list on this is fucking ridiculous, and you know the skills were ridiculous. Fantastic album. I used to work for a company that I used to have to spray gates, and I sprayed fucking Dead Kennedys all over the building. Back when I first heard this, you know, for some reason I couldn't take to their albums as a complete album, which is very unusual for me, as I'm an album guy, not a singles guy. But I just found that with this band, this was all I needed. But it's absolutely fantastic. One of the sort of lesser known ones, because I know people will go for you know, Too Drunk and California Borealis and stuff, but one of the things I loved was where's it gone?
Police Truck was always a favorite of mine. I like this.
Yeah, well, I mean that's brilliant as well, but I can't remember the name of it now. Is it Life Sentence? You know, really elaborate fucking whatever. Life Sentence, absolutely fantastic. Towards the end of the song, he really goes for the vocal acrobatics and stuff.
Right.
I always think that the Irish thrash band Gamma Bomb has a very, very similar vocalist to Jello Biafra. If you don't know that band and you like Dead Kennedys, try Gamma Bomb. He really is similar.
I don't know if I've ever heard Gamma Bomb.
I put that out as well. Let me read you the hype sticker. If you want your kids to grow up as stupid, bigoted, and conservative as people who wish to censor records with stickers, destroy this record before it destroys you.
Awesome.
Is there someone's complaining about a buzz? Is there a buzz on?
It's Jurgen's got. I think it's the fan from his laptop. There's no way around it. It's just the way it is.
I haven't really noticed it at all on my
It's a low level. It's not a. It's I don't know. I can hear it, but it's not like making me crazy. And I got headphones on, so anyway,
I can turn it up if you want to.
hook it up
What
to
the
an
fuck?
HM2 pedal. All right, Alan is next.
All right, this one came up in the chat just a couple of minutes ago, and it was near the top of my stack anyway. Doom metal throughout the 80s was kind of sparse. You know, there were bands and there were very good albums, but it never really got its full moment in the sun. It always seemed like Doom was, you know, kind of the unwanted stepchild compared to thrash or speed or glam or later on death metal and stuff. But yeah, you still had some big ones, and kind of, you know, the big album I think for '87 out of Doom was Candlemass's Nightfall.
Classic.
Yeah, you know, Messiah Marklin, you know, makes his day band, and you kind of, you just have, you know, a sound that almost feels like it was meant to be. You know, that he really was meant to be the voice of that band during this era. The cool classic, you know, cover painting just fits the mood of the music. So many just, you know, instant classics on the album. You've got, you know, the opener, you know, Well of Souls. It just has, you know, this, you know, great opening vocal from him. At the Gallows End and Samaritan, still two of their most recognizable songs. Samaritan, you know, such, you know, a very cool song, and which, it's funny, you know, as doom metal, it actually has, you know, kind of, if you're reading the lyrics, it's actually a pretty happy, uplifting kind of story about dying and, you know, getting to go to heaven because you were a good person. It's not typical doom metal fare at all, and it's done just beautifully. If the album has one downside, it's the fact that out of 10 songs, you've got 4 short instrumental interludes. Gotta call party foul on that, guys. You don't put that many instrumental interludes on your doom metal album. That's not necessary. Yeah, that only leaves you 6 quote unquote real songs, but they are fantastic ones. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, this became, you know, not just a benchmark for Doom in '87, this became a blueprint for doom metal period moving forward. So many bands in Doom still try to emulate the sound of classic Candlemass.
Even
It's
Candlemass.
even Candlemass, and even
they can't do it.
And even they can't do it particularly well anymore. They're still okay.
It's still good, but it's not that good.
It's different. It's
the trilogy of albums around that is, well, the 4 albums around that are, you know, amazing.
They set a standard that, you know, bands have been trying to live up to for decades, and only a few have, you know, succeeded to full estimation. But that's a topic for another night, perhaps. Anyway, you do have a few really good Doom albums in '87, but for my money, this is the cream of the crop out of the Doom corner.
Very much so.
That Samaritan songs, that's in my top metal songs ever. It's fantastic, that song.
It really is. Yeah, it's just an amazing emotional song.
Have you heard Crux, Alan?
I don't think, no, it doesn't ring a bell.
Crux was Leaf Editing's side project. It's really, it's quite good.
Okay.
Can't remember the name.
I've heard a few things he's done outside of Candlemass, but that one I have not. I'll keep that in mind. Let me write it down over here.
Crux is their third album with. I have it over there, but I can't remember the title. Perfect album, perfect singing. They got the singer who later joined for a couple of EPs with the curly hair. What's his name?
Oh,
that guy that sang with Yngwie Malmsteen as well. So
yeah, Jeff Scott Soto?
Mats Levin.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of someone else.
The third Crux album is a perfect album, yeah.
All right. I guess it's me, isn't it? Okay.
It is you, sir, yes.
I'm going to wait. I'm not going to show this one yet because Alan's probably going to show it, so that's fine. All right, let's get into the German stuff. Raging Steel, Death Row, man, I love this band. I prefer, my favorite of theirs is Deception Ignored. It's just crazy technical, and they somehow get songs out of it. But this here is, it's just really solid, dark to me, German thrash metal, with the unfortunate engorged penis purple color of that guy. But yeah, Raging Steel, Mortal Dread. Oh, this album rules. And, you know, I was very much a noise guy, and I got this in Camelot as a cutout for $2, I think. Crazy. Anyway, I don't know. Jurgen can elaborate on these guys a lot more than I can, but other than the fact that their first 3 albums are great, this one is a step up from Satan's Gift or Riders of Doom. And I think Deception Ignored is exceptional, but I can see why some people think it's a lot to take, because it is a lot to take. But this record is, you know, they get, I think, lumped in a bit with Kreator, and Kreator, of course, was the more popular band out of the bunch. But this was it Doomsday News? It had Raging. Which one did it have on there? Dragon's Blood. What a great song! What an awesome song! Great band, great thrash band. If you're not familiar with Death Row, go check them out. So good. And we're back to Jurgen.
Yeah, Raging Steel was my first encounter with Death Row. I think this is my #1 album by the band.
You think so?
And they were playing in the same practice room as Warlock did, because they are from the same town.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And they said they wanted to listen to Warlock, but they couldn't get in, because in the early days, Warlock already had a security standing before their practice room.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Staying in Germany, couldn't avoid that. Paradox, a product of imagination. Paradox debut album, they released their second demo the same year. They signed to Roadrunner or Road Racer, and they were classed as the German Metallica. And I stand by my word. Paradox, product of imagination, is better than Metallica's Master of Puppets. Period. Yeah. Awesome cover artwork by Joe Pentagno. All the tracks on here are killer. I don't know if you heard the album, but melodic, speed metal, thrash metal, you can lump them in with the triangle that I mentioned before. It's got heavy metal riffs, speed metal, thrash metal, everything. Perfect album.
I still haven't heard that.
You haven't?
No. My mate had it back in the day, and I've known about it forever, but I've just never heard it. And it's not easy to get now.
Mike, I know you. You will be disappointed.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He's a tough nut to crack sometimes, for sure.
But maybe not.
Maybe not. All right. Speaking of Mike, there he is. What's up? What you got?
Right. I'm sure there's going to be a more extreme album than this shown tonight. But at the time, I couldn't stomach it. It was too much for me. I didn't get into it till later. But this is the most extreme I got in '87. After seeing the video for Toxic Trace and just blown away. The production, everything was really loud on the recording I heard. The video, it was always louder than all the videos that was ever shown on Toxic Trace, and I just thought it was, fantastic. And it was actually a mate of mine who bought it at the time. He thought he would like it because he liked Toxic Trace, but when he listened to the full album, he thought it was too much for him, and I ended up getting it off him for nothing. And I lapped it up. But having said that, the intro for Toxic Trace is needlessly long.
It's way too long.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't even know now at 50 whether I'd have the patience. I'd be like, oh, fuck off, lads.
Yeah.
Immense.
The song is worth the payoff, but man, the intro is like part after part. Come on, stop. Oh, come on, it's time. Get to the song.
It's definitely not the best Kreator. It's one I've always enjoyed, though. You know, it's definitely always been in the mix. But yeah, for me, 1987 didn't get any more extreme than this. I couldn't handle an album that I didn't pull off the shelf, but I figured one of you guys would, and I'll let you know at the time if anyone shows it. But that was as extreme as I got in '87.
That album, to me, when it came out, I put myself back in time. I worshipped it. I worship Kreator. Listened to it a million times. As an adult listening back to it, I hear it as a transitional record. I think there's some great songs, like Stephanie mentioned Behind the Mirror. What a great fucking song. Holy shit. There's a lot of great Toxic Trace, other than the long ass intro. There's a lot of great songs on there, but the album came before it, smokes it. The album that came after it smokes it, in my opinion. It just seems like a transition. It's still great. Don't get me wrong, but.
And how cool was Millie on that video with the massive dark hair and the fucking camouflage coat on?
Yeah,
he looked the business, didn't he?
Yeah.
When we were 12 years old, we hated the album because we thought they were whipping out.
Not enough fists up cows' butts for you.
Yeah, come back when you fist some livestock. Then we'll know you're serious.
Then we'll know you're true. Your steel is true, I see. All right, Alan.
All right. Well, another German one, but not thrash. I mentioned before that 87 is when you start to see some different genres start to, kind of, break through a little bit and get their first albums out. And Shred Boy was just mentioning in the chat, you also start to see a change with power metal in 87. And, it really, you had power metal before this, but it starts to change directions in 87, and it revolves around this album, Helloween's Keeper of the Seven Keys, Part 1.
That's the one I was going to hold off on.
I thank you. I appreciate you not scooping me on this one. Longtime viewers will know this is my favorite heavy metal album of all time.
It's perfect.
It is number one. It has always been number one. There's never been anything that really came close to knocking it off the top of my list. And, I love the stuff they did before this with Walls of Jericho, the EP and such. But obviously, here they bring Michael Kiska on board with, very different approach on vocals. And this album really changes the direction of power metal forever after. You have, other bands, were doing similar things, but, they kind of, quickly fall in line, and Helloween really spearheads, that change through the next couple of years as, Blind Guardian and Scanner, and other bands, kind of, follow suit. But yeah, amazing album. It's, it was, a quirky album. You have the band goofing off in kind of a funny way in their picture. They're not trying to look mean or scary or tough or like we're all, kick your ass or fist your livestock, or we're just goofing off. Which I, as a kid, it's like, oh, these guys actually look like they're having fun. I guess it's okay to have fun with heavy metal. That works for me. But yeah, Kai Hansen, fantastic guitar work throughout. With him,
stunning guitar work.
And Waiki, Kiskei's arguably my favorite voice in heavy metal. I've always said, Jeff Tate's about the only one who could come close to him in terms of overall quality. Maybe Rob Halford. Maybe
Daniel Hyman.
I'm not going to put him ahead of them. I guess he can hang out in the back of the room with these guys. He deserves that. He deserves to be in the room. But I'm never just because of legacy, I'm not going to mention him quite in the same breath. Oh, he gets into the end of the paragraph though. But yeah, so this is another one where power metal, it's, not a ton of this style in 87, but it definitely shows what direction that style is going to go in subsequent years too. So there's another style of heavy metal that changes course and makes a new kind of appearance and a fresh start in 87. And the album did quite well too commercially. It's not on, it's not selling 20 million copies like Hysteria, but it did well enough, that you had major, labels sniffing around the band pretty soon after that, which, kind of ended up backfiring to a degree, but it's not like, it's some lost classic people only discovered 20 years later. That album was, big business by heavy metal terms back in the day. So yeah, a great album, and another genre that spreads its wings a bit around this point in time.
Yep, and Ernesto, the vocals are insane. He's only 18 years old when he recorded that record. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, it's just, I'm only going to say what you guys are going to say. It's fucking ridiculous. My mates went to Germany on a school trip and fetched that album back. And when we all got it, it was like fucking clear your desks. Whatever you've got on and you're listening to, get it the fuck off, because it's all about Keepers. It was all about that album for absolutely months. Just ridiculous. And to be honest, it's always been about that album since for me, because it's one of my top albums of all time. Both the Keepers albums are in the conversation in the top 10, never dropped out.
Yep.
Just absolutely off the charts good, those albums for me.
Same here. Yep. Yeah, and Mike summed it up well. The blueprint for power metal to come.
Yep, absolutely. Genre-defining album for sure. All right. More Germany coming at you.
This should not be overlooked from laps either.
Yeah. Pleasure to fit. This album rules. When this album came out, I had it on tape. Oh my God. The riffing and songwriting on this thing, just savage. Absolutely savage. It's very, from Zombie Attack to this, it's a very mature songwriting progression as far as I'm concerned. The songs are way more complex. I like the production of it. It's just the perfect thrash metal production. How do you say his name? Is it Gira? Gira. He his voice, the lyrics on here are fun and silly. Every song's about drinking or drugs or something. I mean, so that kind of eliminates the seriousness a little bit, but I love this record. This is, as far as I'm concerned, their shining moment. I like The Morning After as well. That's a really good record. But this thing here, the riffs are just so good. No one really ever talks about this or this band other than Jurgen. I mean, Jurgen is done, showed off his collection. He's drank a couple of the guys under the table. That's fine. But this here is their opus album. This thing rules. And when I got this, I could not stop listening to it. Absolutely stunning. Great German thrash metal. I can see why they're lumped in with the big four of Germany, but I don't know. That's a discussion for another time, but I love that record. Good stuff.
Very good one. Yep, great pick.
So if you can't pronounce Gary right, just call him Andreas.
And I used to think it was Mark Gruey as well, but it's Grieve, isn't it? Mark Grieve?
Mark Grieve, yeah.
I was close. Trying to be an honorary German, it's never going to happen. All right, Jurgen, you're up.
I will teach you some stuff after the show.
Okay, cool.
So what about some non-metal stuff?
Go for it.
Folks have been mentioning a lot of good non-metal titles in the chat tonight.
Dawnraiser, the first Feast of the Nephilim album.
So good. There you go. England is on par with that one. Good job, England. England.
And they were so different to any other stuff that came out during that time.
Yep.
I don't know, the very, very unique sound, the cowboy image,
spaghetti western with goth. It's great.
The harsh vocals.
If we're going down this road, then
Also out in '87, their what is it?
That's the Blue Water EP. Yeah.
Blue Water EP. Yeah. And another one. 1987.
Fantastic.
You can call it world music. I think Towards the Within is their darkest album.
That is, agreed.
In my opinion, the cover alone speaks for itself.
Yep.
So very, very different as well. If you haven't heard it, do check it out.
That's a great. Is that the one that you got and haven't checked out yet, Alan?
I got.
No,
a
you got the
album by them
you got the
recently.
live one, didn't you?
I got the live album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to. I had that on a tape years ago, and I need to go back and revisit it.
The live album is good, but Brendan kind of sounds like Neil Diamond on that a little bit, which I like. I'm old. I like Neil Diamond, but yeah.
Yeah, I played the live album. I mean, they obviously are talented. I'm not in the mood for that kind of music right now, so I'm going to have to circle back to it another time.
Yeah, but that one is great. Absolutely great album.
Dawn of the Iconoclast is worth the purchase.
Yep.
Alone.
Those 4AD albums at this point can't be cheap. They're probably.
Oh, then they're not too expensive over here.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, there were always imports here. So, I mean, trying to get that shit on vinyl back then was not. I mean, I bought Fields of the Nephilim's Elysium on CD for $25 in a shop because it was an import. Beggar's Banquet. Is that what it was on? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. You can get the CDs for €3 or €5 over here.
Yep. All right, Mike.
Right. I'm going to go with the newest album that I've got into from 1987. I know it's embarrassing to say that I've only just got into it, but I really have, and it's rock and roll, Motorhead. I mean, Motorhead to me have always been a band that are like, yeah, okay, I like a handful of songs. Don't think Lemmy's the greatest singer in the world, but I like a handful of songs.
That's the beauty of Motorhead. He's not the best singer in the world, but he does what he does really well, and it's mean and nasty.
I changed my fucking mind on all of that about 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. He's fucking awesome. I mean, the 80s Overkill stuff.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, the 80s Overkill stuff is as good, if not better, for me as the Iron Maiden stuff, and I cannot believe I'm even saying that. But that's how much it got its claws into me, and you know, it's just fucking immense. After that, after rock and roll album, I have a live album after that, No Sleep at All. After that, for me, people trying to get me into the you know, oh, try Sacrifice or Inferno or blah blah blah.
Sacrifice is good.
They are. I'm not saying they're bad albums. I've tried half a dozen of these albums, and I'm not saying they're bad albums, but they're not. They lack something that everything that Motorhead did up until that point did, and I don't know what it is. There's an Englishness to it. There's a simplicity to it. There's a certain style, and I think that the difference between the styles is when they left the UK and moved to America, and then put out 1916 and that.
I love 1916 as well. That's a great record.
And it's not a bad album, and neither's Bastards. I know they're good albums. I'm not running any of that style down, but there's a significant difference for me. I can see a line in the sand, and I'm like, right, well, okay, I can certainly like those albums. I might not need to own them all. I can maybe pick up 2 or 3 of them and enjoy them. But
yeah, that's fair.
But before that, back till Overkill, from Overkill to rock and roll, fucking shit the bed. I need all that, like fucking, you know, everything. It's absolutely fucking mind blowing to me. Like the guy's vocals. I've gone from like saying, oh well, he's a shit singer that I can't really get away with, but I don't mind some songs, to thinking, what the fuck were you thinking? It's like death metal. You can't have another singer in Motorhead. It's got to be that It's got to be that voice in Motorhead. It's like trying to put another singer to fucking death metal. It's not going to work. It's got to be that voice. And now I am fucking all in like you wouldn't believe. And that album to me is the last studio album that gives me that feeling. 1916 doesn't give me that feeling. Rock and Roll does. And I've heard a few people overseas run Rock and Roll down. And I think it's probably because it was a soundtrack to a film, which was done by the guys in The Young Ones. And a lot of famous people, they weren't that famous at the time, but they've all gone on to have massive careers in the UK. And I think I was fully aware of it back then. I used to like the song Eat the Rich, but I just didn't know the album. And it's absolutely fantastic. But I do think there's a strong Britishness to it. And if other people from other countries don't have the same sort of appreciation for it as I do, I understand. Because some things you've got to be there, or you know what I mean. And I think maybe the early Overkill stuff resonates with a lot of people, but I think maybe it sounds to other people like it runs out of steam by the time Rock and Roll comes out. But I would go so far as to say it's probably my second favourite Motorhead album after Overkill.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever seen them live, Mike?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't appreciate them. I was in a tent at Donington. Well, it was called Download at the time. And I was in one of the side tents, and Napalm Death were on. It was 2005. Napalm Death came on, and they went off. And then Motorhead came on afterwards in this little tent with like 300 or 400 of us. And it would probably be on the Inferno tour. That it would be that sort of era of albums or whatever. But I didn't appreciate what I was seeing, quite honestly. I was more bothered about seeing System of a Down headline and not on the main stage, which, you know, for whatever you think about them, they were absolutely fucking phenomenal, System of a Down. So I'd love to go back in time and see Motorhead in other eras, or just appreciate what I did see. But unfortunately, I couldn't tell you. I'd be lying if I said, "Oh yeah, I was all like yeah," because it just went right over my head.
I saw them on the Hammered tour, and man, class and swagger. They were so good, so loud. They were so pure. They were just They're fantastic. They're Motorhead. They're fantastic.
My friend Steph is in the chat. She was saying she was in that same tent at the Jack Daniels tent. Napalm Death were on first, and they played a lot of like footage in the background of like, I don't know, I forget now, but it was as if it was maybe like animal cruelty and stuff to get you to be a vegan and stuff. It wasn't very pleasant, to be quite honest.
Yeah. All right, Ellen.
All right, I'll do one more German album for this go around. Another one in sort of the power metal circle. 87 is when Running Wild kind of sailed in a different direction. They'd done a couple of albums before this that are quite good. People always go on about Gates to Purgatory and kind of forget about the second album, which I think is great. But yeah, for this album, the band was having some trouble getting over. They had famously kind of crashed and burned trying to tour America, and it didn't go well. And yeah, they were kind of figuring out where do we go from here? And Ralph reportedly watched some pirate movies and figured that we could do that. And so they did. This is where they, adopt the pirate thing and they go all in on it. Some people absolutely do not want to have anything to do with this. And frankly, I think they're missing out on some amazingly good music. I don't care if they're wearing, ballerina tutus and clogs while they're playing this. Running Wild in this era is phenomenal. And here, they're just kind of, getting warmed up to the style. This album, most people are going to know it mainly for the title track. It's one of the big anthems in their catalog. But there's a lot of other really solid albums. The album's got, a cool production that gives it a lot of energy. A lot of just, very up-tempo, aggressive, headbanging, fist-pumping numbers. It sets the stage well for, they'll go from strength to strength to strength after this album. They kind of kept getting better and better. This one should not be overlooked. I think it's easy to think of it as, it's the transition album. They transitioned really fast into having the sound worked out and, getting the whole pirate motif worked in pretty well. And again, if you're still hung up about the pirate thing, it's never been as though every song was about pirates. They have one or two per album, but they also have a lot of songs that just touch on other historical topics or other very typical heavy metal topics, motorcycles and freedom and, Western stuff. So it's not, just one big pirate joke like Ailstorm or something like that. Love the band, one of my all-time favorites. And yes, I don't like the early two albums, but I don't have any issue with them adopting a more unique kind of look here that obviously worked out well for them in the long run. They're still going. We were talking online before starting the show tonight, and Mike, you were saying that word is Running Wild should have a new album coming out this year, so we'll keep an eye out for that for sure.
Get ready for drum programming mediocrity.
They could improve on that.
No,
but the last two albums have been pretty solid. So
they've been good.
This one will be.
This is probably the strongest backing Running Wild will ever get on a live stream, isn't it? The four people in this stream.
Probably this is probably yes. Unless their mothers all hop on some evening, this is probably their peak.
Yep.
Believe it or not, when Under Jolly Roger came out here in Germany, everybody hated it.
Yeah, I can believe it.
It's quite a style shift.
It's got its detractors.
But it's usually got its detractors that are people that's never given it the chance. Because if you listen to Running Wild, you realise that I done a ranking video saying it's not always they're talking about the headmaster or the boss or the government or whatever. It's not always about a pirate. It's just worked in in a clever way. But I mean I don't know. They've got a really, really strong image, and that can work for them or against them, can't it? Let's be honest.
That's true. They can. Ralph has a very strong personality, and he is over the years reportedly not been the easiest person to work with, set up shows for, interview, tour beside. So he seems to have racked up, some relatively bad karma dealing with people over the years too. I have never had anything to do with him, but you hear a lot of stories that he's there is some ego there that grates on people, and that probably doesn't help matters either.
So MC Jackal here said, I don't know any Running Wild. I'll keep my eyes out for them. What would you guys recommend? Which album to start with?
Probably that one.
That one or Death or Glory.
I would second Death or Glory.
Death or Glory. Under Jolly Roger is certainly not a bad one.
Black Handing.
Even Port Royal in between them is going to give you a good idea of the style. I was just saying in the chat, one thing with Running Wild, why I like that band so much, it's about 11 albums into their catalog before they released one that I think is mediocre. Their first 10 to 11 albums are all thumbs up material.
Yeah.
And for bands just like, you were saying earlier, Mike, most bands you don't have that long a lifespan with. Eventually, with most bands, you lose interest or they change styles or the relationship's over before you get 12 albums deep on most bands. So yeah, Running Wild just had an amazingly consistent run. They did make some duds, later on. For me personally, I don't like some of their early 2000 stuff, but I have enjoyed the last 2 albums they've put out. So they seem they seem to have righted ship, you might say.
But yeah, what you're getting with Running Wild are very rich melodies and very catchy earworm songs. Unique singing, Ralph's singing style and guitar playing style, very unique.
Yeah, the man could write a riff in his sleep, and he could write killer riffs in his sleep that most people could only dream of in their sleep.
Yep.
I think if you want to check out Running Wild, you can't go wrong with everything between 1987 and maybe 1995.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. If you do listen to one of the first 2 albums, those are going to be a bit different sounding than what came after. So that's maybe not the best place to start. They should be checked out. They should not be ignored, but that's not going to give you the overall sound they are known for.
I see that Billy Milano blunt is really working out for Ryan right now. Okay, Hookworm. What you're catching with Running Wild is Hookworm.
now I want some Long John Silvers. I haven't been there forever.
Oh my God, me and Terry, one year we were down Grand Rapids. I was going record shopping. We stopped. I'm like, oh, Long John Silvers. We went in there. They must have been having trouble with their septic because you walk in, the whole place smelled like poop. I still ate there, damn it. It was good, but I shouldn't have. My brain was saying, what are you doing? This can only end badly. It smells like shit. It's going to be something wrong. It's not right. But anyway.
Might have been okay to, hoist anchor and go to a different restaurant.
I had in my head, I wanted their hush puppies. Is that what they're called? Yeah.
Hush. They got those weird hush puppies that you can't stop eating.
Yeah. Anyway. All right,
Marty.
What the
Run
fuck
Wild with a different title now.
What, Jurgen?
What the fuck are hush puppies?
It's like
that's a great question.
That's a great question. It's like a it's like a compressed ball of like deep fried bread. It's like cornbread with like a fish flavoring in it. It's weird. It's weird. I don't know.
It's some kind of fried corn
what?
Of a thing.
Hush puppies.
Hush puppies.
In the UK, right? Hush puppies were shoes.
We have those too.
There might be a bit of a foot flavor to these hush puppies too. I can't quite. Is it fish? Is it feet? I can't tell. Yeah.
When we were kids, like the older kids would, if they saw you eating hush puppies at Long John Silver's, they would joke that they were made out of dogs.
They're delicious
because they had puppies in the name.
Yeah,
but yeah, they have a strange flavor, but they are kind of addictive. And Long John Silver's is about the only place that still is legally allowed to sell them, I think.
Yeah, it's like the uranium of the bread family. It's like really tightly compressed.
Okay, I wondered if Mel was still awake. She's coming to the rescue here. They're fried cornmeal.
Oh, okay.
But have a fish flavor. It's weird.
I'm sorry for this stupid question, but I know what hush brownies are.
Okay.
You and Ryan are in the same band. What the hell is the name of that? What the hell is the name of that band? All right.
I think that's Blunting Wild.
Right. Well, Jurgen hinted at the beginning of the show a bunch of death metal demos that were happening and getting ready for the explosion that would happen, but this album was kind of the first to beat everybody to the punch. And I know this is like the old head thing to say this is my favorite death record, but it's the first death record I got. And I love it. I love it. This album, Baptized in Blood, Torn to Pieces, Mutilation. Ugh, what a driving killer song. Zombie Ritual. Holy shit, dude. This to me is great. Musical, brutal. Chuck, we use Evil Chuck back then. His vocals are just so scathing, and you can kind of understand what the hell he's saying, which is really great. And this is one of the few Ed Repka covers that I really like. It's a little different from most Ed Repka covers. It's usually it would have been this guy in the front and these guys in the background, and I don't know. Anyway, this guy wasn't even on the album. John Hand, poor John Hand. But
yeah, he put a good performance in, didn't he?
Yeah. Chris Reifert from Autopsy, of course, played drums on this. When this a lot of this stuff was crafted when Chuck moved out and lived in Antioch, California for a while, hanging out with the Autopsy dudes and the Sadist dudes. But this album is a gem, absolute gem. Yeah, Chuck got a lot more highbrow. His music got a lot more advanced, a little bit more proggy, a little more technical, which is fine. I dig some of that stuff as well. But this is the statement here, and what a statement it was in 1987. Absolutely.
Well, I think so. Stephanie just said in the chat too. It's still a huge statement today. How many albums come out every year by new bands that are basically just following that blueprint?
Not as good. Not as good as that.
Well, it's hard to duplicate the original perfectly, but it's still such a huge impact on so many bands.
Mutilation, what a song! God, it's ripping.
It cements that album. I didn't hear Death until Leprosy came out. To be honest, Pull the Plug was on a compilation that Under One Flag put out the following year. 88. Yep. That was the first time I heard Death. But then there's the whole, what was the first death metal album? Personally, I think, and I don't think Seven Churches was. I think Scream Bloody Gore was the first death metal album.
I'm with you, and I say to me, Seven Churches was dark thrash all day long. I didn't, they said death metal on it, but Venom also said black metal. They named their album black metal. I always thought Possessed. If people want to call it death metal, that's fine because there's similarities, and and Chuck sounds a little bit like Becerra a bit vocally here and there, but to me, Possessed were always dark thrash. And I'm fine with that. That's not Sicknick. That's not a signature. That is this is a local radio station here in town. It's a college station, WNMC. I ended up getting this from them. So this is a radio promo. If you can see, there's like ratings after each song that the DJs put on there. We used to have a like here, Zombie Ritual. They wrote "fuck you" because there's swearing on it. So this is a radio promo from my local college station. Yeah, not a signature. Probably worth some money. All right, Jurgen.
Yeah.
So are we all in agreement that Possessed is dark thrash, or no?
Yeah, I think so.
That's where I would put them, but I'm not going to hold it against anybody if they want to call that one the first death metal album. I get where they're coming at from that, as long as your argument isn't simply that they had a song called death metal, because that does not hold water for me. I mean, in that case, hell, I'm making a case that Helloween's the first death metal album because they're on a compilation called Death Metal, or Possessed.
Yeah.
So no, that just having a song called death metal doesn't make you death metal.
No.
A lot of, you had all kinds of bands were sticking death kind of in their description back then. You had death rock bands like Christian Death. That's how that stuff was. A lot of what we now think of as like kind of early 80s goth music, it was called death rock back then. So yeah, you got to have a little more of an argument than just saying that they wrote a song called death metal. But yeah, again, I think there is a case to be made for Possessed beyond just the song title.
Right on.
Yeah, Onslaught had a song called Death Metal on their debut album.
Yeah.
Already in 1985 as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
And Chuck was wearing that shirt with pride.
Sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Chuck brought out his British inner self with sacrificial kunt.
Kunt. Normalize.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So next up, I'm going with some German power metal. Lucifer's Heretic pulled out their demo in. Mm-hmm. This CD says it wrong. It says 1986, but it was released in 1987. They just recorded it in December of 1986. This one has a couple of highlights from their first album, Majesty, of course, Run for the Night. And that came out even before the Keeper stuff from Helloween. So you can hear the Helloween influences on that, but it's more in the damn it, Walls of Jericho style.
Right on. Yep.
Yeah. So Lucifer's Heretic were early on in German speed and power metal.
And people did crack the code. Yes, Lucifer's Heretic did become Blind Guardian. As yeah, they went on. Yep. Good one. Good pick. Oh, Mike is starting to fade. He's got the look. He's got that.
No,
Get another bottle of wine. Fuck it, let's rock.
Right, well, I got my first girlfriend in 1987, and that relationship comprised of me sat sulking on a beanbag and letting her know in no uncertain terms that she wasn't as important to me as WASP. Blackie Lawless meant everything to me back in 87, and I couldn't be more excited when this album came out. I learned every little bit of chit-chat in between the songs. Me and my boys here. You know, that sort of shit. Just fucking love that WASP album. Love that WASP period. That was like the full stop after the sort of raw meat era WASP. And although I loved Headless Children and I quite like Crimson Idol, the early period really is where it's at for me. Fantastic album, fantastic band. Where were you all at with WASP in 87?
I dug them. Yeah.
It would be a few years before I would get to that, but yeah, obviously, yeah, I like a lot of stuff out of Wasp's catalog. So
they remain pretty consistent. I mean, there's some after Headless Idol, or no wait, Crimson Idol that I'm not familiar with. We reviewed one of them on what the hell was it?
Unholy Terror?
Unholy Terror on one of the album clubs. It was awesome. Great record. I had Eldorado, which I didn't care for much. That wasn't the greatest of
that
albums,
one's easy
but
to dislike.
Blackie's got such a distinctive tone in his voice. It's hard not to love it, you know?
My first encounter with WASP was the Live at the Lyceum video.
Oh, 1984.
Yeah, it's perfect. Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I think Darcy's seen them on that tour.
Mm-hmm.
What a fucking jammy bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fucking incredible to see them on that tour, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that Lyceum performance is just fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Just 45 minutes with perfect songs, perfect stage setting, perfect delivery.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat fucking WASP for me. In 87, I would say WASP were the most important band for me, to be honest. I'd gone back and picked up the earlier albums and stuff, and I think maybe Videos in the Row came out that year or whatever, and it was just incredible.
Just a short side note. We were talking about Running Wild earlier on. Rock and Roll's favorite metal album of all time is Wasp's The Headless Children.
Is it?
Oh, didn't know.
Yeah, and if you listen closely, you can hear the influences a little bit.
Yep, it's probably still my favorite Wasp album.
Oh, the debut is so good.
Debut.
Yeah.
I know most folks think the debut, but yeah, again, I'm just young enough where I wasn't there when the debut came out, so I don't have.
But even Inside the Electric Circus, absolutely phenomenal, and they don't even like that album themselves. But when I hear that intro to Electric City, you know, and the animals, they're something else, and all that shit, fucking, that is a tremendous album. But yeah, right up until, to be honest, up until 92. I seen them in 92. But a bit like I was saying about Motorhead earlier, when I seen Wasp in 92, I was kind of over Wasp by 92, and I didn't really appreciate what it was I was watching, to be honest with you.
All right.
Jurgen, you've started a thing tonight. It doesn't seem to be going away. We thought cattle decapitation was extreme. Fuck that. They got nothing on those guys.
That guy's like after the cattle decapitation cover, trying to push it all back in. Anyway. Just
by the grace of God and these two fingers, we're getting it all back in there.
Hold still, little fella. Okay, here you go. Alan.
Just hold on, Bessie. It'll be okay. It's my turn.
Your turn.
Not a good time for my turn. All right. Compose myself. We've got to talk about some American metal here. By 87, it's always felt to me like, traditional heavy metal was starting to have a little more trouble showing through by 87. That, you really were, if you were really looking to get recognized and get on a bigger label or get more airplay, you were either going the glam route or you were in camp thrash. The styles that had been popular in the first half of the 80s, they weren't extreme enough for the thrash kids or the kids collecting, the underground demos, but they also weren't pretty enough or, commercial friendly enough to, get the big airplay. That said, the established bands in those styles were still doing fine. Yeah, it's just that, smaller bands, and I'll show one or two of these later, they weren't getting the same amount of attention as if they had come out back in 83 or 84. But anyway, one of the big bands from the US that did put out a monster album for me personally in 87, Savatage with Hall of the Mountain King. Here was a band that had gotten picked up by a major label, and an album happened. We'll pretend it didn't, but they came roaring back, with this one. This is one of my favorite American metal albums out of the 1980s. The band just sounds, almost a bit unhinged here. John's voice is maniacal. Chris's guitar work is astounding on most of it. It is a fantastic listen. There's a few songs, that maybe are not quite as strong as others. Everybody's got their favorites. Some songs that people will bypass. I love it almost start to finish. It is one of those albums. It's probably not it's not a top 10 album for me, but it might be in the conversation for like top 25 albums of all time. The band was just, really hitting their stride at this point. Yeah, and after this point, of course, they started to drift in a different direction. They went more Broadway. I like that era a lot, too. They did some amazing stuff during that era. But this is kind of your last big hurrah for them to be, just a pure heavy metal band. And, they certainly ended that era, with a huge release. So, yeah, got to shout this one out. Bands could still put out, some really strong traditional heavy metal and do well with it in 87, but it was getting harder. And even these bands were kind of, again, by the next album, Savatage would be experimenting with Broadway type material. So it was kind of phasing out of popularity in the United States.
That funny, in 1987, 2 of your most favorite albums ever were released. Pretty cool.
Yep. There might be another one too. We'll see. Not sure.
I was always put off that band by the name. I mean, I own everything up until Gutter Ballet now, and I understand that they're fucking awesome. And Hall of the Mountain King's my favourite as well out of all that period. But when I was growing up, it's like Savatage. What the fuck's that name? Forget it. Move on, go find someone else. And then when we learned that Alex Skolnick had joined in them, I was like, what the fuck? He's got that into that band with that stupid name, And it was, to be honest, it was only when I started being involved in YouTube and other people talking about them so highly, and then starting to listen to them. Then I was like, oh yeah, fair enough. I mean, they are absolutely fantastic. I don't like the one where they're all holding a flag. That's fucking awful, that album. But
yeah, we're not. Yeah, yeah, that one's pretty rough.
But that one you've just shown there, Alan, that would be my favourite as well. From what I've got.
Yeah, you're right. It's a weird band name, though. You're right, Mike. As a kid, I always thought they were trying. Again, in the '80s, everybody tried to blatantly misspell things. My first impression at the time as a kid was, are they trying to spell sabotage in a really goofy way? That maybe it's supposed to be like sabotage, but it's savatage. That was the closest thing I could ever come up to.
Well, almost if you take a few letters out, it's savage. They took savage and put, they combined a couple words together.
Savage and sabotage.
Yeah.
Yep. And they were, of course, they were Avatar before they were Savatage, and you've got most of the word Avatar still right there in the middle of it too. They changed away from Avatar because they felt it was too generic. There were other bands called Avatar. They did go with something more unique. Certainly, given that, I don't think there's any other Savatage out there. So you definitely know what band you're talking about now.
There you go. Sabotage plus Avatar equals Savatage.
Yeah, or maybe Savage plus Avatar, a Savage Avatarage. You sabotaged a Savage Avatar, and you sabotaged it. No, I am not making this work. Marty, go ahead. I'll have my fun in the chat for a minute.
we can all be glad there was no a Sabaton back in '87.
Oh yeah.
I just listened to Sabaton yesterday and I liked it. Screw
Some
you
of us
guys.
might be happy if they would have Sabaton in 2024.
Is there a specialist group you can go to for that, Marty?
I don't care. I like living in my Velveeta cheese castle. It's fine. All right. Since none of you lot showed this off, which I'm shocked, I just can't wait anymore. The Legacy.
Yeah.
I was leaving it for Jurgen in case you wanted it.
Well, we can double team this one, but I gotta say,
Just don't resist it, Marty.
There is definitely a lot of perfect thrash records out there, but this is one of them. This is like a perfect US thrash record, and if this album didn't have Alone in the Dark on it, that is one of my favorite songs on this album. This whole album, from Over the Wall to Apocalyptic City, there is not a trip or a stumble on this thing. It is crushing from start to finish. Not only do you have excellent songwriting, propelled by amazing riff writing and melodies from Alex Skolnick and Eric Peterson, but Chuck Billy, he's got such a unique singing voice. He's melodious, but he's got a gruffness and a power to him. It's just, he really is able to dig into those melodies with something special. He's not always just following a riff. He's, jumping up to a different register and offering another harmony to this thing. I don't know. This record, I hate to say this is the best they ever were.
It is.
It sucks because they put out some great shit and they're still putting out good shit. They don't suck. They've never sucked. All their records have always been good, but they've never been this good.
He never sounded like that again. He never sounded like that again.
There's some darkness on here. There's some, obviously Bay Area influence. That's where they came from. Man, I don't know. This is a special moment in time, and this is a great record.
Best thrash album that's ever been, as far as I'm concerned. To me, thrash never got any better. Unfortunately, as early as it was in thrash's life, it never ever got any better. That is absolutely the fucking governor in thrash metal, as far as I'm concerned. It is.
Same here. And by the way, Chuck Billy was new to that kind of speed and thrash metal stuff because he came from a more of a cock rock band.
Yeah.
I've read that in an early interview, but I never found out what the band was or if they had any recordings with them. It would be interesting to hear Chuck Billy, to be heard what he did before that album.
It would be interesting. Yeah.
You can tell that Chuck Billy was trying to work with what was actually originally for Steve Sousa, and it was never. He must have realised what his comfort zone was after that, because he never ever recreated anything quite the same. Even the New Order doesn't have them shrieky highs and stuff like that on it.
No.
It's more in Chuck Billy's comfort zone and what he went on to do from then on. But that first album, it was as if like, oh, I don't know, I'll try this and I'll try that and I'll try the other, and that is what makes it great for me. Just fucking awesome, that album.
Yeah, I think it works pretty well. Steve Sousa always tried to cramp in as many words as possible, and Chuck Billy had to deliver that in some way. And after the debut album, they started to write their own lyrics and they narrowed it down. That's why nothing sounds like the Legacy.
His hair metal band was called Guilt, says Jack Half a Prayer. Thanks for that, Jack. We'll check that out.
Okay. Wow.
All right. Jurgen, you're up. And again, this, we could go on and on and on about this. This is a great fucking record. Really. It is. They did a lot of good stuff after this, some okay stuff and some not so okay stuff, but wow, what a start. This is a tough record to follow up. It just is. You put out such a good record. How do you follow it up? But they did. I mean, it's all right. Anyway. Mike, thank you so much, man. You're too kind.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Marty was talking about Canadian thrash metal early on with
Let me get mine ready here. Okay, go ahead.
What is it?
Not yet. Oh, okay.
Razor put out Custom Killings. It's not a very good album, I have to admit. The one that came before, and especially the one that came after, are much, much better. What's the point in opening the album with an almost 10-minute thrash metal song with the riffs repeating over and over again? It's not Sheepdog's finest hour. But also out of Canada, Strapato by Slaughter came out in '87.
That's a good record.
So
Folks have been asking for that. Yep.
their debut album, they got a couple of demos that were more a little bit punkish. You can still see the punk influences by the hairdo of their mascot. Strapato was a very, very special album. A lot of Celtic Frost influences on there. And Chuck was in the band for a short while. And he left the band on no good terms. That's why there is a song called FOD, Fuck Off Death, on the album.
That's funny.
Especially dedicated to Chuck Schuldiner. So Strapato was early on in my extreme metal career. The song Incinerator is just, it's a pop hit for me.
All right. Nice picks.
Incinerator, Wood for a Feast. Wood, morning wood.
Alan.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Damn it. I thought I was on top of shit. Apparently not. Ah, right on.
Oh, very nice. Yep.
I think this has got one of the best side ones ever. Side 2 dropped off for me, to be quite honest.
Agreed.
But side 1, it's absolutely killer. And Battle Angels and Die for My Sins are just they're real awesome songs. But yeah, Sanctuary, Refuge Denied. I didn't realise till I watched I think it was Scott Waters saying that that's supposed to be that Pastor Bob, and he had a place called the Sanctuary Church, and Sanctuary, I don't know, he had something to do with them, and he wouldn't let them stay or wouldn't let them do whatever, and they called it Refuge Denied or whatever. I don't know. Scott Waters would tell you better than me. He has more information on it, but it was quite interesting what he said. And yeah, I mean, this is an early Ed Repka, very reminiscent of the Megadeth So Far So Good production, and that's probably why I like it, because I love that album. I know Marty isn't a fan of it, but I love that album. I used to like this album, and then I kind of fell off it for a long, long time, and then people in the VCs that must have discovered it as something, newly discovered it and been blown away by it.
Was that one 88?
I was a bit like, what was it? I thought it was 87.
I'm looking it up.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I had 87 in one place, but it might have been.
I thought it was 87, but you know what? If it is,
it is 88. Oops.
Right?
Well,
Okay. How about Whiplash?
That'll work just as well.
perfect.
There you go.
Burning of Atlanta.
You can always rely on some pernickety cunt on your live stream, can't you? Never mind. Walk the Plank and The Burning of Atlanta is my favourite songs on that one. Not as good as the first album. Still prefer the first
It's still
album.
really good, though. It's still a good record.
It's still awesome. And another example of 1987 still throwing stuff out at people, because this wasn't a band I knew about back in 1987 either. This is new for me, to be quite honest. This is a new music on vinyl reissue. And I fell in love with the band's sound as soon as I heard them. I actually always thought Refuge United was 1987.
Well, someone just said it was 87, but Metal Archive said 88. So I don't know. I don't know who. It doesn't matter. It's a good record to talk about.
If you live in Australia, it was maybe 87, and if you lived in San Francisco, it could be 88.
Right?
Yeah. I have it as 87 in one place and 88 as another, so it may have been on the borderline. Metal Archives doesn't give an actual date; they just say 88. So it could
The first
have been
pressing
January
came out in
1st.
November 87, says Jack Half a Prayer.
Yeah, okay.
It didn't come out in the U.S. until 88. All right. There we go.
Thank you, Jack.
Either
On
way,
top of it, as usual.
Well, you got a 2-for-1 there.
that was a twofer. All right, Alan.
All right, let's see. I think it was Alaskan Berg asked about this one earlier on, and I said it was coming. Now it is time. I'm in the U.S. part of the stack. Got to talk about this one. Manowar goes to a major label, and people get pissed off about it. Fighting the World. Up to this point, Manowar had released 4 albums already, which I'm always tend to forget that this is already on album number 5 for them. But so it is. Personally, I've always liked the album. It has its flaws, and I get why people maybe were disappointed in it. It is, following up 2 of their best albums in most people's estimation. You're coming on the wings of, Sign of the Hammer and Hail to England. You could even say 3 of their most favorites, because a lot of people, would have, Into Glory Ride right there with those. And this album, it has a few missteps. It doesn't help, that you've got, some more fun songs on here. This is a band that hadn't done fun songs since the debut. And I think that's important to remember, though, that this band had done fun material in the past. It wasn't all Blood of My Enemies across those first 4 albums. If you don't like Blow Your Speakers, okay, that's fine. I think it's fun. But even if you want to skip the cheesy ones, you still have some very solid songs here with things like
Defender on there.
Defender is yes, Defender is on here. Black Wind, Fire, and Steel is on here.
Yeah.
There's still good stuff to be had. Violence and Bloodshed's Carry On is just, it's simple, but it's very effective. It's exactly what you want that type of song to be. So, okay, it's got a few warts on it, maybe. And no, it's not quite at the standard that we got used to. Considering they had, shifted to a major label, this is actually pretty solid. Compare this to what happened to, Savatage when they were, carrying the flag up the hill on their, major label album. Could have gone much behind this phase of Manowar, actually. I think the 3 Atlantic albums are actually still, quite solid. I think they add to the band's legacy okay. No, they're not quite on the same stage maybe as the first 4, but not a lot of things are. So that's a hard act for anybody to follow. But yeah, some people hate it. Some people love it. I'm absolutely fine with it. I've had this CD, let's see, I got this in September of 93. So, yep, I've owned this for 31 years now, and it will still get a play from time to time, for sure. So another, though, example of, a big American traditional metal band that was, going through a little bit of a change. They still popular, still doing all right, but they're on a major label now. They were losing some fans along the way as people, drifted towards, the more popular styles at this point.
I think it's important to note that isn't that Carl Logan's first album? Ross the Boss is no longer, or is he on that one?
No. This is still Ross.
Right. This is the one.
Yeah,
after.
Logan didn't come until Louder Than Hell, I think.
You're right. Yeah.
They deliberately went out and got the same guy that done the Kiss Destroyer album for that.
And
cover,
Love Gun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love Manowar up until, that album, and then I quite like Kings of Metal. I have everything up until Kings of Metal, and then to be honest, I'm done after that. But
that's a fair stopping point, I think, for most folks. Yeah. It gets a little. They get tough. They get tougher and tougher to live. And to be honest, I mean, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 albums that ever came after Kings of Metal, so it's not like there's a lot of material there.
There's no wealth of material, is there?
Yeah, which is a shame.
Why in the hell don't they get Ross the Boss back in the band?
And they charge an astronomical amount for tickets. Have you noticed that as well?
Mm-hmm. They're trying to wrap. I think they're getting close to wrapping it up, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they are playing 70 minutes with a long speech of Joey DiMaggio and a long ass bass solo. So
and sometimes a big drum solo. Yeah, they waste a lot of time in their live performance. They just do.
The playing time you get for $100 or $120 is like 40 minutes.
Yep, and
if you're lucky.
They did that, and I saw them in Detroit at St. Andrews Hall. Immortal opened for them, and there was maybe 30 people there. And they were so fucking loud in that little place. But this is the second time I saw them. They start off with a long intro, the Orwell introducing them.
Mm-hmm.
They come out. Eric Adams says a bunch of inappropriate things to 2 women in the front row. And then there's a bass solo, a guitar solo, a drum solo. They played maybe the whole thing lasted about 40 minutes. They were the headliners. You could tell they were warming up for Europe. And they played 5 or 6 songs, and the bus was parked out front. There were people, I drove 8 hours for this bullshit. This sucked. You suck. Fuck you. Because they sounded great. They played great, but they didn't want to be there. If it was a packed house, maybe it'd have been different. I saw them out in New England at the first ever New England Metal and Hardcore Fest. They were great, and the place was packed. They were amazing. They played forever. They were great. But anyway. All right.
What do you then, Marty?
You know what? I see a lot of people say they hate this record, and I don't get it because I think this I spun this thing incessantly when it came out. I still, whenever I listen to this band, it's this one or their second full length, but Sacred Reich's Ignorance. I love this record. This thing is like perfect crossover to me, but leaning more into the metal side. It's just kind of social, political, aware lyrics, hard hitting, driving. Every song is pretty fast. Phil Rind, is that his name? Phil
Rind, yeah.
Phil Rind. Very unique shouting / screaming style. I do like the American Whale. I thought the Surf Nicaragua EP was okay, but the American Way, I really like how well produced that record is. I could live without the function on it, but I still think that's a good thrash record too. What they turned into after that, I don't like the groove shit. But this album, it's like, it's got a bit of a punk hardcore vibe to it, but it's just hard hitting, driving metal. It's a good crossover record. I love it. And people hate this thing. I don't get it. I don't love the cover art. But man, this album rules. I love this record. It's just catchy, and it's just, this is a driving record. Very driving in the speed, and also if you're driving around, it's a great driving record. Awesome album. It bums me out. People hate. I spun this endlessly when it came out. Love it so much.
Yep. That's cool that you like it.
Yeah, me too. People refer to it as a C-class thrash metal album, but it isn't.
No.
And they on the album they made a big step forward. If you listen to the Draining You of Life demo, it sounded a little bit like Helloween's Slayer. Even the vocals, and on the album itself, on Ignorance, it's unique. I think it sounds unique.
Yeah. Greg Hall, what a great drummer. Was that his name? Greg Hall? Awesome, tight, fast drummer. Good.
And by the way, the singer is called Phil Rind.
Yep.
And Rind in Germany means is a male cow. He looks like that.
Jurgen punched that one right out of the park.
Yeah. All right, Jurgen, you're up.
Okay, have we visited Australia?
We have not.
Mortal Sins, Mayhemic Destruction. Another great speed thrash metal record. It's got melodic moments. It's got harsh stuff on it. I like the production on it. I like the vocals on it. I like the riffing. Just, if you don't know that album, just check out the song Lebanon or Into the Fire or Mayhemic Destruction. I love the album. I'm not sure if the original came out in 86 in Australia on a small label, but the European pressing is from 1987. And just before that, they had a band called Slaughterlord. So the guitar players are the same on Mortal Sins debut and the Slaughterlord demos, and the second Slaughterlord demo is from 1987. Even At the Gates did a cover of a song. The song Legion, yeah. At the Gates covered Slaughterlord.
Right on.
I've only ever heard Face of Despair. I have Face of Despair, but, well, I tell a lie. I have heard that album, Mayhemic Destruction, but it just sounded a bit like a rougher version of Face of Despair, and I thought, well, I already know this album quite well. I'll stick with this. So I didn't really invest the time in that first album, to be honest. So I couldn't say, but it's quite expensive as well to just pick up. You know, I picked up Face of Despair for like 10 quid. Well, that's not going to happen with that one. So I don't really know it.
Face of Despair is like a little bit testamentish.
Yeah, it's like,
you know what I mean.
They supported Metallica, didn't they, at the time, and you can tell that they would do.
Mm-hmm. The first album is a little bit more harsh. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
Right. This album is an album that back in 1987, when I was introduced to it, I went, nope, forget it, too extreme. I can't cope with it, don't like it. And it was only when the follow-up album came out the next year that I was like, right, okay. And I started to give the band the time of day. Bathory, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, I've got there. To me, Equimanthorn's always been the best song on this album.
Yeah.
And I think he was really underrated as a guitar player as well. I know he done everything and all the rest of it with, but he was a really great guitar player. And but to be honest, back in 1987, Kreator was my sailing level as far as extremities. I couldn't cope with Bathory. I thought it was just too much. It took me a little while to acclimatise, and it was only when Speed Kills 4 came out, and they included the song For Those Who Died off Bloodfire Death. And then I thought, all right, I could hear some melody, and it was a sensible pace, not like fucking, it didn't sound like Massacre. It wasn't that fast or anything like that. It was something reasonable I could get my teeth into. And it was really only then that I went back and got into Under the Sign of the Black Mark. But a friend of mine was like fanatical about them, and he run the fan club for the UK, and I've tried to get him on a video with me and show all this stuff. He's got everything all signed and fucking letters off Quorthon and everything, but he won't make a video. But yeah, that was too much. Just to sort of go back to 1987 and what I could stomach. Bear in mind, this was my first full year into metal. Well, it's a lot to take from Slippery When Wet to Under the Sign of the Black Mark. You're not getting there in 6 months, are you? And I couldn't do it. In the first year, more than a year, in fact, I couldn't do it. But obviously now I realise that it's a good album.
I think Quorthon has been a strange person. I read an interview about that certain album, and he discredited it because all the Norwegian black metal bands referred to that album, and he said there's not a single moment of real guitar on the album. Everything is done by synthesizer.
He's full of shit. He was such an enigma. He lied about everything.
Yeah,
he really did, which is cool because it keeps everybody guessing. But still, I mean, if you don't play live, you have to do something. I mean, he'd lie in interviews all the time, so you never knew what was right.
Never heard Venom.
Yeah, never heard Venom. My ass.
And he never heard Manowar.
Yeah.
Later on.
He actually, I saw an interview where he admitted to the Viking era was very influenced by Manowar. It was his attempt to try to recreate that. So he says one thing and then he's an enigma. Yeah.
And during that time when that Bathory album came out, Witch Hunter was the Sodom drummer was in the band for a short period of time.
Huh.
Did you know that? He was with Quorthon for a couple of weeks.
Wait, who?
Witch Hunter.
Witch Hunter was? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he never talked about it. He just said there was no beer in Sweden, so.
Yes, there are. Yes, there is. Yes. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So Alan is next. Good pick, Mike.
Yeah, very good one. Yeah, again, one of those, kind of black metal templates peeking through there in 1987. Yeah, I think it was Steph said a few minutes ago. Yeah, it was kind of an album ahead of its time. Here's an album that was very much of its time, sticking to the more traditional stuff for another round or two. We have Dio with Dream Evil came out in 87. And yeah, I think many people would say this is probably, the last really strong Dio solo album. People, there are certain people, of course, who like the later albums here and there. That's fine. But it starts to get a lot more, people get a lot more, choosy after this. You'll find some people that like Lock Up the Wolves and some people that, might like, Angry Machines and stuff. But it's hard to get any consensus on those. Up to this point, and including this album, Dio's got a pretty solid catalog. Everything kind of lives in the shadow of Holy Diver for almost everyone, but this album is still perfectly fine. You still have a lot of solid tracks with Sunset Superman, All the Fools Sailed Away, the title track.
That's
of course,
a good song.
Yeah, there's still a lot of very good music on this album. Yeah, I think sometimes it gets a little bit forgotten because it is the last of the quote-unquote good albums. And it also comes after Sacred Heart, which is one that people can be a little split on. I like Sacred Heart, but I get that was maybe a little too polished for some people's tastes.
They kind of polished the fire out of that one a little bit.
Almost did, yeah. It came
but it's
really,
still a good
really
record,
close.
but yeah.
Yeah, there's good songs, but they almost did clean it up too much. This one doesn't have that problem. This one's got a little more palatable production overall.
Is that Craig Goldie or Vivian Campbell?
This is Goldie. Yeah,
Yeah,
Campbell was already gone by this point. So you got Craig Goldie on guitar. And that may be another reason this one gets a little overlooked. People really loved, Vivian's work in the band. Well, this doesn't have Vivian on it. So it's an album that sometimes I think gets a little bit forgotten. But every time I go back and play it, I'm always impressed. Like, no, that one's solid. It still gets, a good solid thumbs up even at this point. After this, again, it'd be a few years before the next album, and Dio would basically scrap the entire lineup and start over with Lock Up the Wolves to questionable success. But we're not talking about that album tonight because it's not from '87. So yeah, Dream Evil should not be overlooked. It is still a perfectly fine Dio album.
I think you're right there, Alan. It's the last Dio album I care about, to be honest. And I think with Dio, he tends to have great albums for the first half of his career and then just try and rehash the lyrics for the second half of his career. There's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of stuff, phrases and words and, that you've heard already.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
he gets a lot slower tempo-wise by the time you're getting into the 90s too. That everything starts to, if he's not careful, some of the songs can really start to plod. Even when he was working with Black Sabbath, that there was a trend to that.
All right. Well, I can't understate how enchanted I was by this artist. It started with Merciful Fate. I'm just blown away by King Diamond, and Fatal Portrait's my favorite. But man, I wore the ones and zeros off the disc of this CD when this came out. I bought it on disc. Man, it's such a great record. It really is, and he just had a run of awesome. You still have Michael Denner, one of my favorite guitar players. Andy LaRocque, what a lead player. He never plays a wrong note. Timmy Hansen from Merciful Fate, amazing bass player. Never go with the eye patch. That is such a stupid. That's such a stupid metal accessory. I mean, come on, eye patch. Anyway, and Mickey D, of course, amazing drummer. If you put this next to them, I think I pick them every time. But both records are great. When I get on a King Diamond Merciful Fate kick back in these days, I would listen to everything. But, there wasn't a lot to listen to at that point. As the years went on, my marathons continued, but they took longer and longer and longer as more albums came out, especially when he was doing both bands. But, I mean, this is King still on fire. There's not a wrong note, a bad song on here, you know, you fall into he kind of pioneers the whole concept thing, the horror concept. It's just a great record. I like the production. I love the musicality of it. I love the vocals. I love the story. God, such a unique voice in heavy metal forever. And hopefully this year we'll get a new Merciful Fate record or maybe even a new King Diamond. I don't know, but the single they dropped is pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. Don't hate it. Since his surgery, since his heart bypass and quitting smoking, his vocals have kind of returned to that youthful. He's hitting those youthful highs. Granted, live, his wife's there helping him out, but man, it works. It sounds great because he struggled for a while. He was struggling live. King Diamond make any of you guys' list?
I knew somebody would pull it. Yeah, that's my favorite King Diamond album.
Yeah,
still is to this day. Best story that he ever put together, too, for my money.
Yeah.
I don't even know him at all. I mean, I do, but I don't know any songs. I obviously have known him forever, but and I feel really shit. I feel really sort of entry level to say that it's his vocals that put me off. I feel like after 35 years, I feel like after 35 years, I should be in a position where something deeper derails me from enjoying him. Not something as obvious and an entry level as his vocal style, but it really is his vocal style. You know, I'm like, oh God, no, I just can't. I've really tried. Once a year, I don't own any King Diamond or Merciful Fate, but once a year, I tend to sort of, try my luck again and put their YouTube on or whatever and listen to something, and I just think, I just can't. It just bugs the shit out of me. But I mean, I don't take anything away from him. If he was playing, within an hour, 2 hours, like an hour and a half away from my house, would I be there in a fucking heartbeat? Definitely, because I know what he is to metal. You know what I mean? It's just that I just can't get behind the albums. I just it's lost on me. I suppose there'll be more than me that can't get over that.
Oh no, it's a common gripe with King Diamond. The vocals are a sticky point, and I didn't think it either when I first heard it, but it clicked. And when it clicked, I loved it. I
wouldn't run him down for a minute. I wouldn't question his position on a bill or his importance in the metal world or anything like that. I blame me for it. You know what I mean? I don't think he's shit or anything. I'm not like coming in from that angle. I'm just not there with the guy.
Yeah. So if it was the same music with a different singer, you'd probably say Warrell Dane was singing on that Abigail record. Would you be like, oh, fuck yeah?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really paid that much attention. Once the vocals put me off, I couldn't even... the only thing I can remember is a song called The Curse of the Pharaohs. That's the only thing that jumps out at me from his entire career. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even be able to tell you what anything sounds like, to be quite honest. So
this is going to be like Motorhead for Mickey. It's going to be one of these days. It'll be like
this
video's like, oh, what was the fuck I thinking? Merciful Fate.
I tell you what. Along with Motorhead, in the last 2 or 3 years, Rush has been the same sort of deal. Because I was all like, fuck Geddy Lee, fuck off, I'm not interested. And then one day I was like, no, you know what? Fuck that, that's good. And then I got to a phase where I picked out all the Rush albums that I wanted. There was 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever. I don't like everything, but I have my period, and it takes me a bit of time, you know what I mean? I can't do it. That's why I don't do end of year lists, because I'm too far behind everyone else. It takes me longer to process shit.
Right on. All right, Jurgen, what you got, man?
Okay, talking about strange vocals, what about another classic thrash metal album?
Mm-hmm.
Holy Terrors, Terror and Submission. Very, very unique.
Keith Dean rules. Rest in
Keith
peace.
Dean has such an amazing voice, and he's got such an amazing delivery. A little bit like the early Testament, cramping so many words into really, really fast songs, and still being melodic. He doesn't sound like Chuck Billy. He's got, I don't know, you can't describe his voice. Like I said, very, very unique.
He had a tough job, especially on like Mind Wars. So technical and fast. He's trying to like pull melody lines out of that. He's kind of just read one of that's only one. You know, he's kind of, but he still did it in a melodious way, and he's a great singer. Great. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And what makes this album great is the wishy-washy production on it. The drums are so fucking buried in the mix, you can barely make them out. It's just like a background noise, like someone's typing on a real old typewriter. Have you noticed that? You can barely hear the drums on the album.
I'll have to check it again next time I spin it. I guess I never paid attention to it.
I think that a unique production, a unique songwriting, unique vocalist, nothing ever sounded like the first two, or the only two Holy Terror albums. So, and the cover artwork speaks for itself.
Yeah, they're both great records. I prefer Mind Wars, but man, they're both great, unique
It
as
was
hell.
this channel that got me switched onto those albums. I remember Marty talking about them a few years ago, and I was like, right, I'm checking them out. I've got to be honest. To me, Terror and Submission is definitely my favorite out of the two.
They're both great. Either one's a win, you know.
But yeah, I mean, as soon as I checked them out after. That's another band that I'd seen back in the day, and I was like, well, whatever. There was too much to check out. They just got lost in the mix. But as soon as I checked them out, I bought them. And yeah, awesome. But I do prefer that one over the Mine Wars, to be honest.
Yeah, both great albums.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Terror and Submission, but they're both fantastic. I blind bought it for like $2 as a kid at a record show, and yeah, was instantly blown away.
All right, Mike.
My first release after getting into this band this year in '87. Initially, I listened to them and thought they were too much for me, too extreme. Couldn't understand it, but I was very, very early into getting to this type of music. And, a couple of short months in your youth, things can quickly turn around, and all of a sudden you're right into something. And then I eagerly anticipated Metallica's Garage Days. And I thought this was fantastic. It was my first introduction into all these bands that was featured on here.
Oh, yeah.
But I will admit, even though they were all great, I think, and it says here on the back, not very produced by Metallica. It's the last time they had fucking production this good.
Yeah, I know. Ever. Yeah. That's the best produced album in their fucking career. Yeah.
Yeah.
I came away loving, to be honest, this got me turned on to the Misfits. This was the release that got me switched on to checking out the Misfits. But when I listen back, Crash Course in Brain Surgery fucking sounds immense. But this whole thing, I recently got the vinyl of it, original press, and I put it on the turntable, and it sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, how they can say not very produced is just
they're fucking their heads up their ass.
Doing in the meantime.
Yeah. there's no that record, that EP right there showed me that they're one of the best cover bands. Metallica is a great fucking cover band. They're kind of confused and lost in other aspects as they've gone forward, but man, cover bands, they're great. That EP, I spun the shit out of that tape when I got it. Holy fuck. Loved it. I liked it better than what came after it. Can't say I like better what came before it. The shit that came before it's great, but man, I was like, holy fuck, this is great. My first introduction to most of those bands too. Yep.
I have a short story about that EP. My grandmother bought that one for me for Christmas in 1987, and I knew where she hid my Christmas presents. So when she wasn't at home, I got there, I stacked the LP, copied it onto a tape, and put the LP back. So when I got the EP for Christmas, I already knew it front to back.
Right? You ruined Christmas, Jurgen, you bastard. Christmas is ruined.
And that is why Jurgen has got a lump of coal for Christmas
A lump
for
of
the
shit.
last 30 years running.
Lump of Scheiße.
Scheiße.
It's fine.
All right, Alan.
Let's see. All right, so we've been hitting tons and tons of very big high visibility releases for over 3 hours now. I do want to make sure I get to a couple of sort of smaller things before we have to wrap up in a little bit. 1987 saw 2 Cleveland area bands both put out albums on the Auburn Records label, and Auburn had a really good stable of bands, again centered around the greater Cleveland and Midwest area. First one was Breaker's one and only album called Get Tough. This is a CD reissue. The cover art's a little different than the original, but I just pulled the CD for tonight. Great band, great vocalist in Jim Hamar. They were very influenced by Accept, but with Jim's voice, they sounded much cleaner, smoother than Accept did, but the same kind of very tough sound to it overall. And the other big one from Auburn that year was the second album from Shock Paris, which is called Steel and Starlight. Now here's a case where the with the metal tag that we recently did, and again, really, it's been really cool seeing how many people did the metal tag. Thinking back on it, this is the album I probably should have chosen for album where the music does not match the cover art, because you look at this, and with a name like Shock Paris, you would not be faulted for passing this by, assuming it's going to be, some kind of watered down Faster Pussycat or something.
Yeah.
It's not. This is fantastic, loud and proud, traditional U.S. steel. The vocalist Vic Hicks has, kind of a very gravelly voice. It's not as grating overall as to the point of Udo, but it's maybe closer to say Gravedigger, Chris. Oh shoot, Chris from Gravedigger's voice. But yeah, the band does just excellent, very hard hitting, anthemic U.S. metal, and do it very, very well. Their debut album was great. This album still has a really great sound to it as well. But yes, it looks suspiciously like a Pretty Maids album cover or something, but it's not like that at all. So once again, you had bands in the U.S. still putting out this kind of traditional U.S. If you want to call it traditional metal or U.S. power metal, okay. But obviously neither of these bands really ever made it very far. Breaker didn't get to do another album. Shock Paris did at least one more after this that was not nearly as good in my opinion, and I think they did some more material later on, but these bands weren't getting as enough attention to ever break through to the next level. It's a shame because there was still a lot of talent out there, but they were just it was too late to the party. At this point, everybody's eyes were on the more extreme stuff, or the completely cosmetic, Poison level and Warrant level type of tripe that was going to appeal to a wider base. But yeah, still some good smaller, lesser known things out there, and if we've got time, we'll get to one or two more of those on the next go around.
Welcome, it's Courtney's Fellowship of Oddballs. You have a lot of catching up to do. But hey, thanks for joining
cheers.
us. Thanks for jumping in. Cheers.
Yeah. Glad you found us, and thanks for joining the chat here. Yep. All right, Marty, let's pass it over to you. How are folks doing? Because we are past the 3-hour mark, and I know that's usually where some of us start to fade a bit.
I got 3 left.
Everybody good with 3?
Yes, we can't guarantee quality, but quantity, yes.
We'll see if we can make it for 3 rounds. All right.
Well, you can't talk about Holy Terror without, the degree of connection there is Kurt Coldfelt. He left this band and started Holy Terror. He was on the first album, Unstoppable Force, which is an absolute American favorite of mine. I'm sorry, Unstoppable Force. He was on Skeptics Apocalypse. Sorry, my drink is starting to twist my stupid brain cells around. This is the second full-length Agent Steel album, Unstoppable Force, which isn't as good as Skeptics Apocalypse, but it's still good. It's still good. There's a little bit more of there's a ballad on here, but songs like Chosen to Stay, Rager, Unstoppable Force. This John Cyrus, his vocals are insane high, falsetto, scream, whatever you want to call it. I spun the shit out of this record. I walked into Camelot Music one day and I was handed a Camelot Music Combat Records compilation cassette, and Rager was on it from that. That was the first time I ever heard Agent Steel, was the song Rager. So technically this is the first album I ever heard by this band, and I loved it. I just loved Cyrus's high in the sky vocal approach, just screaming sirens, and awesome thrash metal. You got Juan Garcia, who's now in Body Count. You've got Bernie Versailles, which, great guitar player. A couple other dudes, I have no idea who the hell they are, but anyway, great album. And in 87, I'm still here. Death metal's starting to creep into my vision a bit, but you know what it is? He was a part. He kind of sat in on this one, I believe. Scott Burns did, I think.
Yeah, he assisted with that.
He assisted the engineer.
Yeah,
on this one, but yeah,
them early Agent Steel, they desperately need to reissue them 80s Agent Steel things.
You know what? The new Agent Steel record, I didn't hate it. Dwayne sent that to me. I liked it. I thought it was better. Better than I thought.
Yeah, I do. I don't mind it. I mean, it's actually quite ballsy when you hear the first song. I forget what it's called now, but it's like he's rabbiting on, and you just think to yourself, "Christ, bands don't do this anymore," but he does. Yep. I didn't hate it either. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, I think them old Agent Steel albums, to get them on vinyls, fucking horrible. It's just horrific. They desperately need a reissue. That and Skeptics and Mad Locust Rising.
Skeptics Apocalypse is a savage record, man, and his vocals on it are just Bleed for the Gods. The song Bleed for the Gods. Holy shit.
Ridiculous. 100,000 what do they call it?
144,000 gone.
144, fucking hell.
It's just insane.
All that shit's deadly. It's fucking awesome. It's just too expensive to get on vinyl. I have the CDs and that, but I'd like to see them reissued, but he's pissed every fucker off, hasn't he? He's a fucking idiot, let's be honest.
He claims to have been abducted. Anyway, we won't go there. Jurgen.
Okay, we missed out about one band from the Big Four of German thrash. In 1987, Destruction released the Matt Butcher EP.
I've never seen that. That's pretty sweet. That's a cool piece.
That is a picture shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TJ, if you're still watching, get on that. Buy that.
We've got the half shirts there and there. Still, we've got the bullet bites that would leave soon after that. More to the B, C, or D class.
I have that record too.
Protected from Reality came out in 1987. Probably Living Death best one. Holy Moses, Finished with the Dogs came out in 87. I had the pleasure to work with Andy Klassen, who wrote all the Holy Moses music. And finally, Accuser. The Conviction, that debut album, also came out in 1987.
You sent me a couple Accuser CDs, and they're good. They're a good band. And I see a lot of people, like you and Scott Waters mainly, showing Accuser records. They're fucking good. They're a good band.
This is very, very different to the Accuser stuff I sent you. This is pretty harsh.
Sweet.
German thrash metal, yeah.
Nice. All right. Good picks. We got Alan. Nope. We have Mike next. I almost fucked up.
Right. So I know what the rest of the world's disdain for UK thrash is like. I get it. But what is your opinion on UK glam? Back in 1987, Tiger Tails was certainly something that I was interested in picking up. And what they lacked in songwriting, they made for it in Hairspray. So what? You know what? They actually did.
Everybody's fucking leaving. You showed Tiger Tails. Look, everybody in the show is fucking like, I'm out of here.
They've got an EP out where they cover Creep and Death and I can't remember what else they cover. Something else reasonably heavy EP out, but you know that was one of my very, very early purchases where I thought, oh right, yeah, I've heard of insert American glam metal bands here. Oh, so maybe some homegrown stuff can do the same. You know, these guys are from Wales.
Oh, you've got a MC Jackal saying yes, Tiger Tails. So there you go.
I like this album because it was so early on in my whole career. You know, if I'd have heard that later on in life, I wouldn't have the same opinion of it. Quite honestly, probably. But I mean, do you lot even like overseas? Do you lot even know any UK glam bands? And don't include Def Leppard in there because they are.
Come on, Pour Some Sugar on Me is fucking glam.
Does Whitesnake count at this point?
Whitesnake, I think Whitesnake is too bluesy to be glam. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's probably not fair to lump them in.
Was the turning point for them though?
No. Thunder was kind of a rock / I don't know if Thunder counts as glam or not.
I know they're just a bit like a modern day Led Zeppelin, really, aren't they?
Yeah, there was the Almighty. They were kind of a Guns N' Roses knockoff.
Yeah, I just wondered what UK glam metal you guys would be able to come up with.
Everybody here in the chat saying Wrathchild.
Yeah. I suppose I've got. Yeah, they're okay. And that's all we've got.
Everybody is rocked.
So the UK glam scene is in worse condition than the UK.
Hanoi Rocks. You got Hanoi Rocks. No, wait, weren't they Finnish? Wait,
aren't they? No, they're not English.
Hanoi Rocks isn't English. They're
I don't think so.
Swedish or Finnish, aren't they?
Swedish sounds right.
I've met Michael.
They're Finnish. That's right.
Finnish, okay.
Saxon, they're not really glam.
They get close there for a little bit.
A lot of the bands, a lot of those classic bands is why I struggle, because when I got into this, I mean, if you think of 1987 as like the first year that I get into all this, let's be honest. Where are bands like where are Saxon's career in '87? It would be weird for me to gravitate towards them as being something to take my attention away from fucking Flotsam and Jetsam and Testament, and you know what I mean. That would be odd because they were at the low point. Who else? Who we got? I'm forgetting.
Well, Gary Glitter, Bowie, Blue Murder.
Yeah,
Mike says Blue Murder.
Blue Murder again. Blue Murder might feels a little.
You know, I don't even think in '87 they were a thing, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Blue Murder might have come a little later.
But, Def Leppard. I mean, they were sort of okay. They were coming back after a hiatus. Whitesnake, another band who had been out the scene for a while, who were trying to reinvent themselves.
Well, I tell you what, Whitesnake slided in the self-titled. I mean, you really can't get two better glam. If that's glam, those are great records.
This is great.
That's fucking great.
My attention was drawn to that because of that woman, though, in all the video.
Tawny Katane, rest in peace.
Yeah. That was the appeal there. I understood that apparently they had been a bit of a different animal a few years previous. This was them reinventing themselves. I had no knowledge of that old stuff, and I just took it at face value and thought, you know, she's a bit tasty. I'm happy to watch this.
Yeah.
But looking back now with old ears and eyes and brain or whatever, I favour the older Whitesnake stuff, to be quite honest.
Sure. All right.
We were talking about Tiger Tails. Let me speak for Germany for a second. We here in Germany, we can live with Tiger Tails, but we are more interested what's underneath a cow tail.
We're back to that.
Back to that. All right.
Have you got your dressing gown on, Jurgen?
Huh?
Have you just put your dressing gown on there? Oh well, I'm not going to be outdone by that fucking arsehole.
Mike's putting on his binky. All right, here
I
we
think
go.
you're getting one more round, Marty. And
He's got his moo-moo. His moo-moo on. All right, Alan. I'm going to go use the little boys' room while you talk about something.
All right. Well, that's bad because Marty would probably want to talk about this, but that's all right. Jack Half a Prayer mentioned this in the chat much earlier tonight, and finally got back around to it. Dark Quarterers' first album came out in '87, so most people describe this as Italy's answer to Manila Road, and I guess that's a fair enough shorthand version. They have kind of a similar quirky vocalist. They're doing a type of epic metal that's steeped in a lot of fantasy literature and stuff like that. But they also have that unmistakable Italian oddness about them. Italian bands had a real charm throughout the '80s, where they had something that just their sound didn't really emulate anything else that came out of another European country. You don't get that nearly as often anymore. A lot of the bands that come out of Italy now, while they're still quite good, they tend to sound a bit more like things you would hear from other parts of the continent. But Dark Quarter have been around for a long time. They've never released a ton of albums. The discography's pretty short. Every album's a little different from all the others. But on this one, yes, they're really channeling that kind of earlier Manila Road vibe quite well. You get this is a bootleg reissue from years later. You get a fantastic picture of the guys on the back of the slipcase. But the songs on this one they tend to be relatively long, kind of very winding song structures. But there's fantastic guitar playing throughout. The vocalist is one of those who you're either going to think it's really cool or may turn you off from the band a bit. But it's still just very cool. Jack was referring to it, as one of the best doom albums of the year. You can call it doom metal. It's definitely got more the epic flavor of doom metal. Something like the first, or not the first Manowar, sorry, the second Manowar album, Into Glory Ride. You get hints of that kind of material peeking through here at times. So, yeah, if you ever wondered what Manowar would have sounded like if they were an Italian band that listened to a lot of Manila Road, here you go. This is real easy to find there's been an official CD reissue in recent years. You can pick it up through tons of distros, and it's usually one of those things you'll find on sale for like, $5 or $7
Worth every
on
penny.
CD.
That is so fucking good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I'm glad, I had this, on the list. It was kind of buried, but yeah, I knew Jack had shouted it out earlier. And since we're kind of getting here to the end, wanted to make sure this one kind of snuck in there before we wrap things up. But yeah, very cool album by a band that's never quite got the attention they deserve.
And even up to the early 2000s, they were a great live band. I had the pleasure to see them once.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
And the bass player still looks like that.
He does. Yep. Sweet mustache, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
All right.
All right. Marty, your turn, and then I think we're on our final round after that.
Well, we talked about this band in the chat and decided they were dark thrash. This I just picked up from Aaron the Metal Theologian on vinyl. Thanks, Aaron. I always had this on tape. I spun the shit out of it. Granted, this is a little bit more sophisticated than Beyond the Gates. Produced by Joe Satriani, who was Larry Lalonde's guitar teacher at the time. I don't know. This is a cool EP. I really, really, really loved Possessed back in the day. Confessions, My Belief, The Eyes of Horror, Swing of the Axe, Storm in My Mind. Every song on here is great. Kind of a weird kind of production, but it's a better production than Beyond the Gates. Beyond the Gates is a great thrash record. I wish it had a different production. I either listen to Seven Churches or I listen to this. I always skip Beyond the Gates. And it's not because the songs suck. It's just they're a little more technical than they were on Seven Churches. And it's such a dry fucking popcorn fart production. I don't know. It's just weird. But there's a little bit more room ambience to it. It's still weird. I've always loved the cover art on this. Totally sick cover art. Very cool. Awesome logo. Great band. After this, Jeff Becerra was stabbed or shot in a bad drug deal, and it paralyzed him, and he kind of dropped out of the picture for a while. He's back now. Possessed is back. Their comeback album's decent. It's decent. Do I love it as much as this old shit? I don't. But it's still good. I think they got members of Sadistic Intent doing music stuff for them. I don't know. Anyway. All right.
I think the new Possessed is better than the old stuff, to be honest.
I like it, but I don't know. I'm so used to the old stuff. It's,
The thing is, though, when you go and see them live, that Possessed is the last band I went to see live, and it's fucking creepy. And I knew he was in a wheelchair before I went, and I thought I knew what to expect. And when I got there, and you can't see him because the crowd are higher than he is. He's sat down, and the places that they're playing, certainly in the UK, were lower than crowd level. So it was lower than just the surface level of people, and you had to go. And I went right to the front, and I seen him in that wheelchair, sort of bent over, rabbiting on in the way he does and stuff, and it was quite upsetting, to be honest. I got there, and I spent a lot of money getting there and getting a ticket and being part of it, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, oh, I wish I'd not come. I wish I'd just had memories of albums and that days gone by.
He still sounds good, doesn't he?
Oh, he absolutely does. Yeah, I'm not going to take anything away from the performance of the band and everything. Fantastic. It's if you're okay looking at a fella in a wheelchair way lower down than the rest of the audience, rambling on into a chair. If you're all right with that, you'll be all right with them. But I wasn't. I was a bit creeped out, quite honestly.
Right.
It's a little bit like the latest Paul Diano years.
Mhm.
He's sitting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Who the hell just went? I did. Jurgen's up. Last round, Jurgen. You better show it, or I'm going to have to.
You do it. If I do it, it would be boring. I'm gonna go the obscure way and show a little bit of Blood Money's Battle Scarred.
Never
their
even
second
heard
album.
of that, ever.
Just look at the album cover. That is another one of the 1 out of 7 points LPs that I bought, and it's a straight up heavy metal from the UK. Badly produced. It sounds like Venom with a real vocalist, and Mr. Danny Fox on vocals. Just look at him.
I've never heard of them.
You haven't? Blood Money put out 2 albums, Red Raw and Bleeding and Battle Scarred, and both of these records I adore so fucking much. A weird style of music. Just check out the song Battle Scarred. Do it. You will hate it, Mike.
No, I've never heard of them. Like, what are the thrash or what?
It's not really thrash. It's just plain punkish heavy metal with really, really great and memorable vocals.
Huh.
Blood Money. Do check them out.
All right. Mike.
Right. I'll upset Marty with this last pick, but
Here comes Anthrax.
no, they didn't have one out in '87.
All right. On.
But the most extreme album, apart from what's already been shown, Marty showed Scum earlier on. And as far as extreme albums go, Grim Reality was
They're
where
a good
it was
band.
at.
I don't hate them. I don't love their style. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely loved this mini album when it came out. Just, I know there's a lot of humor in there, but there's also a hell of a lot of skill in there as well. Certainly musically, the vocals of, I can understand anyone who doesn't like the band, whether it's the subject matter or the vocal style or whatever. But I've always liked them, and I think this is fantastic. And I couldn't even pick one out for you because they're all bangers really that you should really listen to. It won't take you that long to do so either. But I didn't know that, the history maybe that Marty knows with them, where there's kind of, I thought they were they understood the heinous crimes and thought they were fucking hideous and ridiculous as well. But if they don't, and on some level that they support the things that these people have done, then I don't condone that for 1 minute, But I've just took it as the tongue-in-cheek, let's make extreme subject matter for our music type of thing. And that on that basis is the only reason that I like them.
No, I get it, and I get there's a fascination with serial killers. I've seen like Corporate Death. He's a singer, guitar player, meeting Wayne Gacy in jail and shit, and it's like taking pictures, smiling with the guy. That shit bugs me. It's like, this guy killed a bunch of kids. Fuck him, and just sing about it, poke fun at it. Whatever, I can get the satire of it, but once you start, like meeting them and wanting their artwork and all this, it just starts to,
See, I didn't know any of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him in the past. Like you could actually go meet Gacy in jail and shit back in the day. But yeah, anyway, yeah. Again, that's a weird thing I have. There's a lot of extreme shit that I can tolerate, but once you start involving killing kids and shit, I struggle with that. Anyway,
I think Macabre are way underrated musically.
they're great.
They
band.
are overshadowed by their image and the vocal style and being hilarious or trying to be hilarious. But the drumming, the guitar playing, and especially the bass playing on the albums is
Sick.
Exceptional.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah,
I had the pleasure to meet what's the singer's name?
Corporate Death.
Corporate Death, yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I met him, I asked him about his real name, and he said, I have to kill you if you know that. But now I know he's called Lance.
Yep. There you go. All right. Who is next? Alan.
All right. Marty, we know what one you're going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's not one you're going to ever talk about. Trust me.
No, I'm not. And I wouldn't pull that one away from you anyway. But just to preface here, before I show my last one, we've been at this for pushing 4 hours, and just to highlight, I mean, we've really covered as much as we could for some of the big noteworthy things. Just to reel off some things we haven't even gotten to show tonight. No one has shown the Ultraviolence from Death Angel. No one has shown Tyrant's Too Late to Pray. No one showed Manila Road's Mystification. Marty, that's your fault.
That's my fault. But I could say I tried to only show shit that I listened to then. I didn't come into Manila Road until 2000, 99, 2000.
That's fair, but yeah, Manila Road there deserves a shout out. We haven't shown Dream Death's Journey into Mystery.
That album always kind of underwhelmed me. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Anyway,
it's kind of a cool one. It's a little ahead of its time, if nothing else. Somebody in the chat earlier asked, why hasn't anyone shown Black Sabbath's The Eternal Idol? Well, that's an 87 release we didn't get to.
And I didn't like it then.
Pentagram's Day of Reckoning hasn't gotten talked about. Anacrusis Annihilation Complete hasn't got a mention yet.
I didn't have it. I only had was the studio albums. I didn't
have
I'm
just saying, between the four of us, again, we could keep going for another hour just to get some of these relatively well-known things covered.
Yeah, Pleasures of the Exodus, Pleasures of the Flesh, which I love that record. I like that better than the debut, which I know is blasphemy, but I just think the riffing is a little sicker.
Yep. So yeah,
the song's a little more complex. Anyway,
so just with my final argument, I just kind of wanted to emphasize 1987 is an incredibly deep year for releases that are well known, and well thought of. We were deep into this, and there's still obvious things like the Ultraviolence that we haven't had a chance to show.
And all those demos that Jurgen showed are like a foreboding obelisk of what's to come. It's the last nail in the coffin of thrash. Thrash right now feels like it's sailing. It's on top of the world. But what's coming is it's going to put a nail in its coffin.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Death Crush, and shown Death Crush, and that's obviously Mayhem getting its first look at the world. Anyway, for the last two I will show, though, I'm going completely the other direction and pulling some obscure things for fun. Somebody in the chat mentioned this a minute ago. I think it was maybe Super Slayer. Wild Dogs has a great album from 1987 called Reign of Terror.
I just got that recently. It was warped. I'm bummed, but it's still a great record.
It is a great record. This is their, I want to say, maybe third album. The lineup had been revamped at this point. Those earlier albums, people differ in their a lot, but they sound much stronger here. If you like stuff like the two Auburn albums I showed earlier, Shock Paris, Breaker, this Wild Dogs album will probably appeal to you in that same just very straightforward US steel. If you like bands like Vicious Rumors, Metal Church, Hex, any stuff like that, Wild Dogs might work for you. And to pair with that, another obscure one that just never quite got through. This is a German one, not a US one, but an old favorite. Adrian's One Step into the Uncertain, with one of the most fantastic pieces of cover art ever to grace a heavy metal album. Yeah, the guy here, that gun is not going to take care of that spider. It's just not going to happen. And there's always the question of what's going on down here. The smart money says, the dude has stumbled onto a nest of eggs. The more interesting question is the guy's about to step on the giant spider's cucumber patch, and that's what's pissed it off. But it's obviously just a kind of an indie release cover. The band picture doesn't do anything to raise your hopes for.
Got some hefty cinch sack bags in the background there for their backdrop.
And Mike was asking about UK glam earlier. If you saw this, you might think it was German glam.
You got fucking John Taylor from Duran Duran in the bottom left corner down there. These guys look like they do nothing but play Depeche Mode albums. I love those leopard pants, man. I want a pair.
If you can get past the front and back sleeves and play the music, there is some killer German speed metal.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, it is.
You are wrong then. Not every song is. There's some variation among songs, but the tracks like Never Again, South Africa, White Death, there are some blistering tracks on here. It's not a consistent album, but it is well worth a listen if you've never checked it out. So we'll close on that one, because where else is Adrian ever going to get a chance to be mentioned? If I don't do it now, it stays on the shelf for another year before it gets another look.
And
there are some killer tracks on it.
That album, or that cover especially, is foreboding the Cthulhu stuff Sulfur AM did, because it's got a Cthulhu spider on it.
Yes, ahead of their time.
Cocaine and Bag Sweat should be that album's name. Swamp Nuts should be the title of that. Anyway,
yes, but I am not kidding. If you do not seriously crank your neck headbanging to Never Again, you are not listening to the album correctly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are connected. I was waiting for Jurgen to show this one because I know it's a band that he kind of likes. I'm not sure, but maybe. I mean, come on. I love this record, but Dimension Hatros is my favorite. That is my absolute be-all, end-all favorite Voivod album. But this is an awesome precursor to it. Overreaction, Tornado, Forgotten in Space. Oh my God, what a great herky-jerky, just like a malfunctioning machine robot. That song, just the way the structures. It's like, it feels like a fucked up malfunctioning robot. I love that song. Ravenous Medicine was that super cheesy video where he does shows the scratches in so funny. Order of the Blackguards. What an absolutely great, dark, awesome, foreboding song. This is this is a great record. If you get the CD version, had Cockroaches and Too Scared to Scream on it, which was the two songs on the Cockroaches disc, picture disc.
Mm-hmm.
This band is great, and this is another one of those bands that people either love them or they hate them. And I get it, because they do have a very obtuse, unique sound, especially this early stuff, the early thrash stuff. They didn't really fit in any sort of lane. They kind of had their own lane, which is what's really cool about this. This lineup, you got Blackie. He's known for that distorted blower bass. Away's drumming, a little bit progressive, a little bit punky, a little bit thrash metal, all of it. This band, and Piggy's guitar playing, stellar. I don't know if it's his tunings, just the way he played the chords he used. I always thought it was the chords, but I think it was his tunings. Just very strange progressions come out. They sound like nobody else. They're and they're still active, and they still sound like Voivod. They've gone through a lot of different trajectories over the years. Some are better than others. I hated when Angel Rat came out, I was pissed. I hated it. But guess what? As you get older and you get over it, I end up loving it. I love that record now. But for me, this is where the band really starts to get good. And it isn't, this is the precursor to what's to come. Dimension Hatros is chef's kiss perfection for me. I even like Nothing Face a bit, a little prog gear, but Jurgen's he went to grab something. Well, let's see what he has here. What'd you go grab, Jurgen? Show it off.
That's my most recent purchase.
Chaotic. I don't even know that was a thing.
Chaotic Harmony. That's the latest single, and I wasn't aware it was coming out earlier last year, so I had to pay 35 euros just for one single song.
Wow, that cover art is sick. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want that T-shirt. But anyway, yeah, Voivod. Anybody wants to throw in it? I don't imagine that this is a Mike band. I know it's not an Allen band.
Yeah. I've tried. I
don't mind them. I have that box set.
Yeah.
But to be honest,
okay with some other stuff.
I did prefer Angel Rat. When that came out, I thought finally Voivod have done something that I can really get on board with. I didn't mind Nothing Face before that, and I do have Killing Technology and Dimension Hatred as well, but I definitely don't see them in the way that you guys do, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and what Wade says here, now Nothing Face, I'm still trying to understand. You know, I could see the writing on the wall. They were starting to change a bit on that record, but and shelving it for a few years and coming back to it as an adult listening to it, the interaction between Blackie and Piggy on that record, the way the guitar and the bass play off of each other, mind-blowing. They were just such mind-blowing musicians, man. So good together. They and the distorted tone with the slicker distorted guitar tone. Oh, perfect. Great. But yeah, that's it. 1987. Did we hit them all? No, but
by far not.
By far not. Jurgen's like pissed. He picked 500 records for this and only got to show 20 or so. So, you know, what are we going to do here? But it was a great year for me. I was 16 years old. This music was opening up my mind to different levels of extremity. It was opening my mind to, you know, it's pulling me out of the, you know, heavy metal era and into the thrash and into the death metal. It's a very pivotal year. What do you guys think?
I think pivotal is a good word for it. That this album this year, as we've seen, it's very, very, very deep with a ton of good releases. But a lot of it does revolve around thrash. Thrash is king in 1987.
It still is.
Yeah.
Writing's on the wall, though.
Other things are coming that are going to change that. But and we've seen that 87 is a good year for kind of planting the seeds for a lot of styles that would become more popular in the years to follow.
Yeah, hell, like 89, you got Severed Survival hits, a bunch of shit.
Madness.
What's that?
Altars of Madness hits in 89 as well.
Yeah. What year did Left Hand Path hit? Was that 88 or 89? That was probably
89.
89,
wasn't it?
Or 90. Yeah.
It's either the tail end of 89 or early 90.
Entombed.
Alan said we've got a lot of thrash metal. I think we left out a lot of classic heavy metal or power metal, like Vicious Rumors did an album, Omen, Armored Saint, Lizzie Borden.
Yep. Oh, that's true.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I love that shit too. What Omen came out? The Curse?
Should be.
Omen was the Nightmares mini LP.
Oh, well, I love that.
Okay.
I mean, I love me some JD Kimball all day. Mike, are you familiar with Omen?
You missed the Cult, and but more importantly, if we're talking non-metal, you missed the House Martins. The best album of 1987 that isn't metal, the House Martins. You won't have heard of that.
Never heard of it. Sorry.
I heard the album.
It's awesome. The guy who was in the House Martins, who only just played bass in a traditional 4-piece band, the bass player went on to he changed his name and called himself Fatboy Slim. I don't know whether you've heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
but it's absolutely nothing like that. It's like the Smiths. If you don't like the Smiths, you won't like the House Martins.
If you want to learn something about vocal harmonies, listen to the House Martins.
Does Mickey have any Kinkert to show us? I wish I did, Aaron. I haven't anymore. No, I still love them, but I haven't got any Kinkert. No, they've always been a band who were quite hard even to acquire over here as well. If you've got any Kinkert stuff, you're doing all right, because it's really tricky to get hold of.
Right on. Well, in the meantime, please go subscribe to MetalMickey's channel. Please go subscribe to Jurgen's 6 beers, 9 lives. Sorry. 6 beers, 9 wives. Sorry, we got a little bit. He did it on purpose just to fuck with us. Go check out Let's Talk Metal, of course. Our dear Professor Alan. And while you're all at it, if you want some t-shirts, there's a whole bunch in the shop. Go check out the Sex Condor design. There it is. Our friend Lee over Heavy Art Talk.
Yeah. And for those who are newer watchers and maybe don't wonder what the hell the Condor thing's about, it was a running joke we had for a bunch of episodes in the past year, and Lee really latched onto that and wanted to kind of immortalize it in a fantastic piece of art. But yeah, it was just a very silly running gag for quite a while.
And we got the Heavy Metallurgy Collector Scum. Show the world what you are. Collector Scum. I know I am. And that's it, everybody. Anybody have anything to add before we jump?
Jurgen, Mike, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a ton of fun, and thank you to everybody in the chat. It's been an awesome chat. Tons of good albums mentioned. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. We covered a lot of ground, but yes, I think we all see that 87 is too much to cover for 4 people in 4 hours.
And we had over 100 people, a lot of new people in the chat tonight. Cheers to everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
That we will. Everybody take care until
Thanks
then.
for having me.
You bet. Anytime. Oh, we're going to be getting Jurgen back soon for a destruction ranking. So everybody.
What?
Yeah, we talked about this, remember? Anyway, cheers.
Yeah, we